for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Member Newquist. Thank you, everybody here. Okay. Will you please take the roll? Sorry.
Joe Van Dyne, absent. Destiny Ortiz. Present. Sherry Newquist.
Here.
Raquel Mitchell. Here. Katie Dean Schlotman. Here. Julie Berkowitz.
Here.
And Chairman Frankie Pretzel.
I'm here. Thank you. We do have a quorum. Okay, first on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from May 14th.
Second Mitchell.
Dawn, please call the roll.
Destiny Ortiz.
Yes.
Sherry Newquist.
Yes.
Raquel Mitchell.
Yes.
Katie Dean Schlotman.
Yes.
Julie Berkowitz.
Yes.
And Chairman Frankie Pretzel.
Yes. All right, motion carries. First on the agenda under new business, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance adopted and approved as amended for zoning case ZC 24031. Nancy Torres Marquez requesting a special use permit for the keeping of a farm animal. Variance for maximum accessory building area from 1,800 square feet to 2,443 square feet. A variance for animal confinement side yard setback from 50 feet to 25 feet. And a variance for street setback from the right-of-way of a dedicated street from 47 feet to 44 feet for PIN number 2315081040060000. This is in Crete Township, commonly known as 1241 Norfolk Avenue, Crete, Illinois, County Board District Number 3. I need a motion and a second.
Second Ortiz.
Okay. Is there any discussion or questions for staff on this one from the committee?
They're going to give the report.
It's all on the agenda. This one, let's just move through this one quickly. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak on this one? Any comments from the public? Okay, is the committee prepared to vote on this? Okay, will you please call the roll?
Destiny Ortiz.
Yes.
Sherry Newquist.
Yes.
Raquel Mitchell.
Yes.
Katie Dean Schlotman.
Yes.
Julie Berkowitz.
Yes.
And Chairman Frankie Pretzel.
I'm a yes.
Approved 6-0.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Number 2 on the agenda, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance as amended for zoning case ZC 24032, Chicago Title Land Trust Company, Trust 800-234-9456, owner of record Steve Strikezola, agent, and John Argadelis of law offices of John F. Argadelis LLC, attorney, requesting a map amendment from R3 to A1 for PIN number 0506281010540000. This is in Troy Township, commonly known as vacant West Schubert Drive, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 1. I need a motion and a second on this one.
Second Ortiz.
We have a motion and a second.
Previous roll Newquist.
We have a previous roll. Before we, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we have previous roll and second, but before we vote on that, is there anybody here from the public that would wish to speak on this one? Are you here for this case? Thank you. If you'd like to come to the microphone. Right there, make sure your microphone is turned on and then please introduce yourself.
Is that on though?
Yeah, it is.
guess
I
so.
hear you.
All right.
Yeah. Hi, welcome.
See, in Plainfield, we have a green light. You have a red light here.
That's right. Opposite.
John Argadelis on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is present as well. I have Maddie Bamford, an intern with us this summer
Maddie.
at my law office. So she's learning a lot about court and county procedures and things. You have a thorough staff report and you know that the PZC did vote to recommend approval of this. This does represent a down zoning. I think I do want to emphasize that point. It's about 11 acres of land. Mr. Sturkoza bought the property, so we did close on it. The Chicago Land Trust was the owner at the time of the application, so he did purchase the land. His intention is to build a home and a pole building and maintain the 11 acres wooded and farmland. So it represents a down zoning and less intense use than was originally proposed. I think staff did see some, some proposals in the past that this should be a subdivision. We've encountered zero opposition from the neighbors. We took the time and sat down with the Village of Shorewood. We asked them their thoughts on it since it's within their planning zone, and they said they were happy to see it downzoned. We also spoke with the township, Troy Township Highway Commissioner. He recommended the Nadia Drive entrance that we talked about, and he said he was supportive of that as the entryway. So we're here. We're hoping to have an approval to downzone this property so my client can go ahead. He's looking to build one single-family home and a pole building and keep a very less intense use than had previously existed on the property. And we're happy to answer questions. As I said, Mr. Sterkules is here as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here that wishes to speak on this case before we vote? Okay, we have a motion, a second, a previous roll, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Number 3 on the agenda, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance adopted and approved as amended for zoning case ZC 24037, Manuka AG Holdings LLC, owner of record, Raquel Reese of Land of Lincoln Solar LLC, care of GSI Development Corporation, agent, and David Bratton of Land of Lincoln Solar LLC, care of GSI Development Corporation, attorney, requesting a special use permit for solar energy facility, PIN number 0410061000010000 and 041006100000010000 and 041006200000030000 in Shanahan Township, commonly known as Vacant Canal Road, Manuka, County Board District Number 1. I need a motion and a second, please.
Motion Ortiz.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I will turn this over to, is it Kelly that's going to take this one for a little bit more information on this?
Okay, so a quick summary of zoning case ZC-24-037. The applicant is Land of Lincoln Solar LLC, and they're requesting a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility. The proposed site is located along Canal Road in Shanahan Township. The applicant is requesting the special use permit to apply to the entire central parcel of the property, but only approximately 21.7 acres will be used for the proposed solar panels. The proposed solar panels meet all the required setbacks. The only equipment on the property that will produce noise is the inverters. The closest an inverter will be to a non-participating residence is 436 feet. The proposed entrance to the site will be located at the eastern end of East Mondeman Street. East Mondeman Street is under the jurisdiction of the Village of Manuka. Located to the south of the subject parcel are existing tree lines and a railroad. The existing tree line provides screening along Canal Road. At the planning and zoning meeting, neighbors came out addressing their concerns regarding the solar project. Some of their concerns with the proposed solar facility included property value screening, wetland damage, decommissioning, and truck traffic on East Mondeman Road. The Village of Manuka also came out at PZC addressing their concerns about the development not matching with their comprehensive plan. Staff also received an email yesterday, including email correspondence with the Village of Manuka and the applicant, and also an updated site plan addressing concerns that were brought up at the Planning and Zoning meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 0-5 denying the special use permit. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit with 4 conditions. I can answer any questions, and I believe the solar applicant is also here.
Okay, I do invite the applicant down to the microphone. I'd like to be here for some questions. Do we have any questions for staff from the committee? Member Newquist?
Do we know why PZC voted unanimously no on this?
Question.
I believe it's kind of a lot of neighbors came out to the previous meeting, kind of the concerns I listed, as well as they're listed in the letter. It is mainly, I think, neighbor concerns. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, Member Freeman?
Thank you. I was back there and they're having a very hard time hearing. I know they've turned it up. If you guys could put your mics closer when you speak, I think that might help just a little bit. But they're really wanting to hear.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay, and we are working on that from the sound room.
See anyone in?
I think if we put the mics just closer, it'll help a lot too. I know it's annoying having them in your face, but
Can you guys hear me back there now?
Is IT here?
Okay, I'll do my best. How's that? Thank you. Okay, please introduce yourself. Oh, make sure is your red light on? There you go.
It is now.
There
Okay.
you go.
My name is Dan Crumrine. I'm with Greenwood Sustainable Infrastructure. Obviously, there was a few questions that were raised a few weeks back. Here to touch base on those questions. Is there any specific questions you guys have before I address a few of the concerns that were brought up a few weeks ago?
Any members, questions from the committee members?
Okay.
You can go ahead.
One of the big questions was obviously property value and the impacts of a solar facility being in the same area. We did pull a couple independent studies showing that there's no consistent negative impact for property values. I did print off some copies if you guys would like to take a look at those studies. As well as a health and safety impacts of a solar facility as well. Yep, thank you. If I have enough, but
Complaint letter.
this is the health.
Where? On the agenda.
Thank you. First packet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, Frank. Regarding the study.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you for this information. It's a lot to, there's a lot here. It's
Yeah.
hard to actually read it right now at this moment.
Sure.
I was wondering, have you spoken or reached out to any of the local Realtor groups to talk to people who are actually in our market here in Will County?
Not that I'm aware of, but one of those studies is Illinois based with some neighboring counties. And then the second one that was through the University of Texas, that is nationwide. I think that was from a pool of 200.
For the Illinois counties, do you know which counties
That
in
one
that
was
study? The Illinois counties?
one of which was definitely McLean County, which is
Which is
which-
not quite the same as Will County. So, I
Right.
mean, we have different criteria here,
sure.
especially with our type of development and, you know, the master plans of all of the abutting government bodies. So, I would ask if you would consider reaching out to some of the local realtors to find out. We have been told by residents that they have received feedback from realtors about the impact on their property values. So I think we need to be more specific to what's going on in this part of the state.
Sure. Yeah, I don't foresee that being a problem. One of the things I would like to point out as well, from the subdivision to the west of this project area is over 1,000 feet. So by no means is this, abutting anybody's property line or anything like that on that western side. And some of those studies as well that were outlined were also transmission scale. So vast projects, some of which are 5 or 6 to 10 times larger than the project that we're speaking of. One of the things as well that we sent over to Kelly, I believe yesterday, was an updated engineering plan that shows there's natural vegetative screening on the southern, eastern, and then the highway to the north. The only open side is that western side, which is 1,000 feet from the subdivision. Our new updated plans do have some detailed vegetative screening that is planned to go in that location. And typically that's staggered evergreens, which would go there.
Any other questions from the committee here?
So one of the other questions I have is, so access, is this whole project fenced off?
Yes.
Does it have a locked gate?
Yes.
Okay, and then do the local fire districts have 24-hour access to that gate?
Yeah, so there would be an entire emergency action plan associated with this facility, and I would assume that would go into the access to first responders. But yeah, this 100% would be accessible if something were to go completely wrong.
So when does that emergency plan, when do you develop and implement that plan?
I would assume that would take place once we get past this first step and we get to the building permit phase. That's part of which would happen at that point in time.
So recently, there was an incident in the Midwest where they had a tornado and they had a solar facility where there was heavy damage. Debris was everywhere. And it appeared from the pictures that almost a half to 2/3 of the facility, they had damage on their panels. And of course, the debris went everywhere. So what happens if we have a tornado here? And let's say, it goes right over the solar panels, we have damage, and then materials are travel to other, within a mile and a half. What happens? You've got a lot of public safety concerns there.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I can't speak specifically on that tornado situation that you're referring to. Obviously, if a tornado blows through town, that's not good for anything, including people's homes. The nuclear power facility to the north, that's an act of God. I don't know if there's a particular plan for something catastrophic to blow through like that. Like I said, a tornado blowing through town not only would affect a solar facility, but every other industry and house and everything else that is going through that is in Will County. But I can't, say that there's a particular plan in place if a tornado blows through a solar facility. I can't speak on that.
So if there were severe weather and there was, for some reason, damage to the panels and any of the materials left the site and caused damage to someone's property, does your company cover the cost in that case?
I feel like that would be an insurance type question, and I'm not prepared to answer that. What I can tell you is that the pilings and how these things are installed are pressure tested. So whenever they do install the pilings, which the racking goes on, they do have to meet certain criteria in order to pass. So, I mean, obviously, like I said, I can't speak on specifics from an insurance standpoint. And if a tornado, or a bad storm blows solar panels off, I would assume that there would be some sort of liability, but I don't know the specifics of that.
Okay. I, I know we were talking about our plan. I think that's something that we need to talk about because this is a great risk for the neighbors. We have severe weather all the time. We just had a storm within the last week and things went flying and, if it wasn't anchored down, but, people, their patio tables break and things. These are panels, they may be anchored down, but they can still break and then those pieces. So that is a concern to me and I think we need to have that addressed. Where if I'm living within a half-mile radius of a solar facility and we have a severe storm and those materials come by and damage my roof or damage my house, am I going to have my property repaired or am I going to have to pay for that? I think that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah, I would also say that I don't think a solar panel would inflict that much more damage than your neighbor's roof or something like that. And I would say that our solar panels are much more secure than a 75 or 100-year-old home as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think that a solar panel would inflict any more damage than your neighbor's roof peeling off and going into yours if a tornado or a bad storm or something like that were to arise.
Correct, but in that case, you'd go to your neighbor, but if it's the solar facility, can they go to you and do you go out and repair damages?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would follow suit exactly like I don't want to go in the weeds too much, but similar to like a homeowner's policy, insurance policy, et cetera. We do carry hefty insurance policies on these things, several $1 million. So I don't foresee that being an issue if something like that were to happen.
So this is a question for our staff. If that's the case, if that situation ever arises, and I don't know if you guys remember when we had the tornado in Naperville, a lot of the strip malls had branches and pieces of siding and pieces of roofs literally stuck in the sides of the buildings. It was crazy. People were running around taking pictures because these things have been flying, then they actually impaled the buildings. If that were to happen, I would imagine the neighbors would probably be calling the county and saying, what's going on here? I have damage. So how do we
I think
approach that?
I think he's saying it would be an insurance claim. He's not prepared to, but they're going to be bonded and insured. And it would be a claim just like if a trampoline flew from one neighbor's yard into your house. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
Did you want to expand on that?
I was just going to agree. It probably would be property insurance. But also the applicant as part of the permitting process and with the zoning case had to submit in terms of zoning a preliminary emergency response plan, which can include responses to natural disasters, their operation plans in the case of any type of emergency. At permitting, we do want a final copy. We often condition to give them a couple of months after the completion of construction to make sure everything is updated and we have the most recent copy of that plan in place with the county.
Thank you. A couple questions I have. So I see you're planning on putting a 7-foot fence around the property. Is it around the 51 acres or the 21 acres that you look to develop with solar panels?
The 21.
And then I'm reading here that the entire west side of the project would be visible from every house on Shawnee Drive. You said that the subdivision is more than 1,000 feet away.
Correct.
And are there any homes closer than that to the project?
I believe there are to the south, but there's 2 lines of vegetative screening plus the railroad tracks to the south. So, I don't think from Canal Road on the southern end, we're well screened from view.
Can you tell us a little bit? You said evergreens, staggered evergreens?
Yeah,
you said?
that's typically what it is. It's in a staggered along, running north and south. That would stretch along our entire fence line. I think it should be shown on the updated engineering designs that were sent over to Kelly, showing where that would exactly be. But it runs north and south on the western side of the facility.
And can you tell us what the fence material will be?
It'd be a chain link fence.
And last question I have, can you tell us what the solar panels, the materials they're made of?
Like the actual mineral.
I know I don't need the full list, but are there any hazardous components to it that will end up in water?
In water? No. So typically your panels are sealed on both sides. So these will be bifacial solar panels. So they will have, gathering power from both ends. They are sealed. Encased, I guess I should say, within glass and aluminum. So there's, from the best of my knowledge, there's no significant evidence of any of that, leaching into the water, et cetera. That's.
I believe the one we're worried about, Member Butler, you always know this, is it cadmium that we're worried about? Do your panels contain cadmium?
I am not sure. I can certainly provide that to you afterwards, but the makeup of exactly what panel we use, I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the silicon-based ones are the ones that are generally more accepted because they don't have any toxic materials in them and don't require any kind of special disposal.
Yeah, I would assume if that is the newest and greatest in solar panels, that is what exactly will be used. But I'm sure as well, the actual panel breakdown, size, et cetera, is probably included in our permit application. I would imagine it's deep in there somewhere.
Okay.
I just have 2 more.
Any other questions from spoken yet? Okay, Member Berkowitz.
So where are your panels and the material from the project going to be recycled?
So there is a decommissioning plan that goes through the Department of Ag. So that as far as that decommissioning breakdown has been executed with them. As far as recycling solar panels, obviously right now we're 30 years out from that. Typically the panels have a 30-year lifespan. They're building a new plant in Ohio. So I'm sure everyone here is well aware that's a big concern, is recycling the panels. But the technology is coming along for recycling them, and there is some plants that are opening up in Ohio. Obviously, that would be our goal, is to recycle them as far as possible, whether that's 80, 90, 100% recyclable. I would assume at the end of this project's lifespan that technology will be there and readily available. But as of right now, that is a relatively new technology as far as recycling.
So as
panels.
of right now, there's no recycling.
There is, but
Where's that at?
the plant that I'm referring to is in Ohio.
And it's up and operating, or it's being built?
It is operating as far as I know.
So you will be taking your panels to that plant in Ohio to be recycled. If there's anything, so let's say you've got to go out and make repairs, equipment, sometimes it has to be replaced. Let's say you've got a couple panels need to be replaced. They can be recycled now. They would be recycled.
Through a certain percentage, that is my understanding, yes, but I am not an expert on recycled. I'm sure it's just like anything else, if you were to recycle a glass bottle, not 100% of that glass is being recycled. There's a certain percentage of it that's being reused. So I would assume as the technology progresses that within the next 10, 20, 30 years, that would exist.
Well, we really just want facts, not assumptions. And so if your corporation doesn't have a recycling plan, then that means they won't recycle. So if you do have a plan, please provide that to
Sure.
us.
Sure.
But I'm not hearing one. Then the second question I had is how much power will this generate?
It's a 5 megawatt AC.
Which
solar facility.
powers how many homes?
That's depends. I don't have the calculation offhand.
Does staff happen to know how much? You said 5 meg
5 megawatt AC.
AC. Does anyone on staff know how much power that is? Is that a subdivision of 1,000 homes or?
That would be considered a good sized field.
I like a little more specific. Does it go directly to ComEd or does it go to local residents? Do you know?
It
Yeah.
feeds directly into the ComEd grid. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if anybody knows, I'm curious.
Doesn't look like anybody knows.
Nope, they don't. Okay, thank you.
I think we are,
I have just
oh,
a
go
quick
ahead.
question. Sorry, I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. It's that western exposed side where your updated plan added the vegetation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to call on some other people from the audience here, but if you want to just take one of those seats,
Sure.
we may come back to you. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak on this one? I invite you up to the microphone. You can just sit in one of these first two chairs here. You can go over to the wall and just wait in line there. Hi, thank you for being here this morning.
Good morning. My name's Pat Farah. I have owned the lot at the end of Mondeman Street where the access road to the solar field will happen. My concern is not necessarily with the solar field itself because I'd rather have that than a plant or a whole bunch of houses. It's with the access road. There's about a 20-foot ravine at the end of that road that they have to go over, and there are natural gas pipelines that go through there to a pumping station about 3 blocks away. And so my concern is how will that access road be built? What will the impact be on my property, which is directly next to it? And then the other issue is there is a interconnection site. Everything's underground except where it connects to the power lines. And I believe that where that's shown on the current drawings is right in front of my property. And so I'm concerned about having a big interconnection in front of my property line.
Okay.
I think that's it for me.
Well, thank you again for being here. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Richard Snow. I live on Shawnee Drive. And I've got a number of concerns going back to the zoning. You have 3 parcels that are part of an LLC, but only one parcel actually requires the zoning to be changed to commercial. Why are the other 2 parcels also being, changed to commercial, which would then open up the possibility of, if you approve the solar, for them to come back in a couple of years, want to put additional solar. So I don't see the need for, lady just spoke about, that runs down through the whole west parcel. And as of last week, no one from the solar people have contacted the local pipeline people that's located right in Shorewood with regard to, wanting to do a road over that pipeline down by Mondamin. And as of 2 weeks ago at the Manuka meeting, there'd been no formal request made to extend Mondamin. There were pictures of what they were talking about originally, but still nothing, had been proposed. So without access from Mondamin, there is no other legal access that's available to them. There are 3 roads up off of Shawnee. You have Church, you have Cody, and you have Davidson. But those have all been blocked off by Manuka. So right now, the only access to the farm fields is an actual illegal access that runs over the CSX tracks at the southeast corner that the farmers, dump gravel so they can go over into that. And apparently the CSX has refused to give them permission to build an actual crossing at that location. So they're down to the Mondamin, access. And, Manuka is concerned about truck traffic, what kind of a road, would it be? You also have, wetlands right down at that point at the end of Mondamin. Just this morning, I look out my back window and I see, 6 or 8 deer coming out of that wetland, going across the field and directly through where the proposed solar farm is to the additional wetlands that's on the north end of that plot where the solar is going to be built. There's been some miscommunications, I think, what's been presented and what has then been changed. One being that there's, no impact on residential values. At the previous board meeting, then that was revised to say, well, they had done some studies and they said it was, a minimum amount, 2.9% decrease in residential values. I was a certified residential appraiser from 2001 to 2013. I did the whole 8-county metropolitan area, Chicago. And from my experience, the impact on residential with commercial ranged anywhere from 5% to 15% devaluing the property values. So, the other thing is they talked about putting up a fence on the west side of the property where the solar farm is going to be. I may have missed it, but initially I didn't hear there was going to be a chain link fence because that doesn't block anything off. And the solar panels are going to be 9 feet high. So none of that would be affected by the fence. Now, if you go in and you plant evergreen trees, that's fine. So are they going to be this high? Are they going to be that high? How many years, if the panels are good for 30 years and you put, small evergreens in, by the time you get to 30 years, they're probably big enough to block it. But they're certainly not going to do anything, now. So it just seems that there's so many unknowns, and things that they're asking to have this rezoned now before they've got all their ducks in order in terms of knowing, are they going to have access, all these different, parts of it. I mean, it seems to be like a target that's moving at every meeting. Something else changes. Now, they just said they sent in a revised engineering plan. Public hasn't seen it. We don't know what, their revisions are. So, and in terms of, I noticed on the agenda that you have something on solar guidelines, for Will County. We've never seen anything in terms of what those guidelines are. I know there was another solar facility south of where we are that was just denied on the old McDonald farm. That was turned down. It's just there's so many unknowns and questions that we don't seem to be getting straight answers on. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, Kelly, he mentioned that there's 3 parcels that they're going to be looking to rezone from A to C. Is that,
They're just requesting a special use permit. But the property does consist of 3 parcels since they're all under the same owner, but they're only requesting the special use for like the central parcel. It's kind of hard to see here, but
the middle one?
the middle part, it's probably easier to see on the site plan, which is what's outlined in red. And yeah, so the special use permit is only requested on that center one.
The 2 on the outsides would remain agricultural?
Yeah, they're all zoned A1. It's just they're requesting the special use permit on the central parcel. So they wouldn't be able to put solar panels on the eastern or western parcel unless they went through the special use permit process again.
His concern, I think, wasn't just that it could be solar, but if we rezoned it, it could become a factory, a warehouse, outdoor storage, something like that. But that's not the case, correct?
No, the zoning would be still zoned A1, so uses that are permitted in A1 would be allowed.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions from the committee? We have one more. Yep, sorry.
Hi, I'm Georgia Snow. I live at 216 Shawnee Drive. And I just have a couple concerns. This is located, once again, with the zoning, this is the middle parcel. But in time to come, what does not, how do I say this? They could come back and ask for more solar farm. And my concern is this is the end of Manuka proper right now. We live at the very eastern end of the town. The whole development with kids and children are in our area. My question to you is, we see these kids in the winter out in the field playing. Kids are going to be kids. They have dirt bikes out there. They have 4-wheelers at times. No, they're not supposed to be there, but it happens. And my question to you is, what if the kids are out in the fields and they're playing with their equipment, dirt bikes and 4-wheelers, and come upon the solar farm? I see that as a major hazard. And that's just one concern I have, that nobody's going to be protecting it other than a 6-foot fence. And as I said, coming back in years to come back and ask for more room for the solar farm, I don't see a plan as far as where solar farms are being thought about. There's a solar farm just up the road in Kendall County at 52 and County Line Road. And I would like to see, are we just going to plop them any place where we've got open farmland? That's my deep concern, because this is at the end of Manuka town itself. And I would like to see some more foresight on this, some more thought put into it as far as where we can put these, next to a residence, next to a whole town. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I share some of those concerns. Unfortunately, our state legislature has decided that that's exactly what they want, is for these solar projects to pop up on just about any available land. So our hands are a little bit
Do you
tied.
have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, a question for staff. So I believe it was stated that the project is 21.7 acres. Is that correct? Where did I get that?
51 acres.
One-
They're
yeah,
going to
so
21.
What is the 21.7 acres?
So the special use area is the central parcel, so that's 51.15 acres. But from their site plan, they're only actually requesting solar panels on 21.7 acres.
So this is my question. So they're right now putting in panels on 21.7 acres. Now, if they decide they want to fill out that 51.5 acres, do they come back and get another, do they come back before us, or do they just add on?
So in that case, since the special use permit area is that center parcel, they could do the entire 51.15 acres, but I believe that's not their intent due to the wetland on the northern part of
Okay,
that.
but they have the
parcel.
ability to do that. They can come back And, or they can just expand it without having to come back to land use or this committee.
Yes, but only on that
Okay.
center parcel.
Right, but that's 51.5 acres. So what happens if there's an issue? Do they have to reach out to Soil and Water? Do they have to get feedback from the fire districts? Do they, if they have an EMA plan, which I haven't seen, we're told there's going to be one, or there might be the formation of one. Does that get communicated, and do they work with those emergency response entities? Or do they
Mhm.
have no oversight whatsoever?
It's like in terms if they were to expand.
Correct.
I believe during the site development permit process, they, with like the emergency services, they would be submitting their site plans to the fire district and be working with them to come up with an emergency plan in case of like a fire emergency.
But the
And
county has no oversight? Is,
it would be, their emergency service plan would be reviewed at the site development permit process.
so why wouldn't we just issue the permit for the 21.7 acres? Why do they want a permit? Why do they want 51 acres?
I believe it's based on the legal description, just the central parcel. I think it was just easy to do the center parcel legal description, just request the whole thing, compared to creating a new legal description for the special use area.
It's a 51 acre parcel. Their project is only 21 acres. If they change.
I
They have
understand
the
that.
special use permit, but they still have to change they would have to apply for permits and things with the county. It's like if you were going to build a house on your lot, you can't midway say, I think I'm going to do a 2-story, not a ranch, without going and changing some permit.
So Marguerite, I think we've had a project in the past where they got the permit for only the size of the project, not the size of the parcel.
Correct.
Correct.
So many of the solar facilities that have come before the board have requested larger areas, mainly because their due diligence for the project is not yet 100% complete. They're still working on final engineering, which would then be submitted as part of the permitting process. They're working towards applying to the state for the Illinois Shines program. Once they get green lighted, they finalize their plans and then submit the permits they need to participate in that program. With that, it usually is 21 acres. It's, the smaller area. The permitting fees, the reviews are only for the area that's being developed. If they decide at a future point in time to expand beyond 21 acres, because the special use is approved to 51 acres, they would have to come forward again for another permit for that expansion and meet the county's requirements at that point.
Okay, so they do have to come back to the county. Okay, thank you.
That was my question. Did they have to go through the permitting process again if they expanded? And they do, it sounds like. Thank you.
Hi, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Jeff Lind. I work in community development representing the Village of Minooka. We realize that your hands are tied from the state legislature, as is ours as a municipality. As best as you're able, we ask the county to encourage annexation within 1.5 miles of our municipal boundary in order that our elected officials are able to work with the developer to meet the requests of our residents. We realize that you cannot force a developer to annex to the municipality, but whenever possible that you do encourage them to do so, giving our elected officials some more say. Last thing I'll say is that if it does go and get approved through the county, we kindly ask that you consider some of our recommendations, as we are just 1,000 feet off of the proposed development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have questions?
Yeah, just a quick question.
Sure.
Have you spoken to the developer about annexation?
We have.
Okay, and they're not interested in annexing, I take it.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chair Ogalla.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you sat down and spoke with them, did you ask them, did you give them a list of what you guys would like to see? And have they said that they would be willing to do that?
Your first question, yes, we have given them a list. The second one is in progress, I'll say. The main three things that we're concerned about at this time is the point of access off Mondamin, the site of the interconnection poles, and the screening from the residents on Shawnee. Those are the three areas that we're really targeting. And in fairness, they've been receptive in speaking with us on that, but it's still up in the air for how that would eventually look.
Yeah, I mean, I have found that when I have not talked with anybody from Land Lincoln, they haven't, a lot of solar companies, when they've come, they've made a plan to have a conversation with me because I'm the chair of the county board.
Sure.
I haven't spoken with Land Lincoln, so I haven't had that conversation because I do suggest things to them that, you know, we want these solar companies to be the best community partner that they can possibly be.
Sure.
And they're more likely to get passed by the board by then. We know our hands are tied, but this board is not afraid to say, listen, we're going to say no, because you should comply. You are an industry that got granted rights that no other industry in the state of Illinois has been allowed. And because of that, we asked them for these things. And I have found the good, legitimate companies have been very willing to sit down and do all those things. So, I mean, I would like to have hopefully they'll reach out to my staff and we can set up a meeting, and then would be good to have you become part of it. So make sure you give your contact info to staff today. Because these are the things that I'd like to have all figured out before it comes to the full county board next week, so that we can say, hey, listen, we talk with them. Because the legislator has tied our hands, the best we can do for our residents is to get what we ask for. You know what I mean? Get what we ask for. They're there for a long time, for 30 years, some going on to 40 years. They have another extension on the possibility of the leasing for that long. Some solar companies buy the properties, most don't. So we're trying to do our very best with that. And then like with the solar guidelines, we're trying to come up with a list of, these are the things the county board is looking for. We understand that state statute says you don't have to do that stuff, all of it. But some are just answering questions like when member Berkowitz asked, how many homes would this supply electricity for? So those things we'd had up front to get this whole process smoother. We're working on that. We're getting towards that. But when you have a solar company that comes forward to you, make sure you reach out to the board, and we will definitely try and set up a meeting so that we can get these things hammered out and ahead of time before getting here today, because it's important for them to be a good neighbor, right? Because they are impacting, they're changing the countryside. And so I live on a farm in Eastern Will County, so I understand what everyone's saying. And it is unfortunate that the state legislator chose to ignore everything and ignore the local authority to say, listen, we know that this might be a decent location. Well, this location is not because of these reasons. And we should be able to have some input into saying yes or no, whether they could be cited or not. So I appreciate you coming forward, and please let Dawn, raise your hand, please, Dawn. Get her your contact information so we could set up a meeting, even if it's just Zoom or something like that.
Of course. Real quick, I'll say that we are on the same page.
Okay, great.
And we'd be happy to meet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Member Newquist.
This is really a question for our staff. So the things like the road access point and the whole connection siting, are those part of the permitting process? So those issues have to be resolved satisfactorily before a permit is issued?
Well, where the utility pole and the road access will be determined by the site development permit process. Regarding like the road access, for the special use permit, we do require like a letter of intent or conversations between the road authority, which was provided. So that's but it will have to be determined by the site development permit once that's complete.
And I can jump in regarding the point of interconnection. It's largely dependent on where ComEd would want that point of interconnection. So that's going to be kind of where they enter into that interconnection agreement with ComEd.
Basically, there's only a limited amount that either side can do about that connection point. But with the road access, I'm assuming that the company's been working with the highway department, the township highway department, or the county, whichever is appropriate to resolve those issues.
Please go back to the microphone.
Yeah, my understanding is that that authority would stand with the village of Manuka, in which we have been in pretty regular contact regarding the road easement.
Thanks. Did you have something else?
I'd like to ask a different question, yeah, not of this man, but of our
Oh.
staff. Have we ever had a conversation with ComEd regarding the connection point? Because I would think that there could be a very feasible location and other locations maybe not as feasible. But I mean, if it is directly in front of this lady's house, it seems it would be reasonable to say, listen, can we just get it moved somewhere else? And have we ever had any kind of conversation with ComEd at all?
We have not.
So that'd be something we could probably look into setting up, if we can do that, Margie, if you could do that. Because I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask the utility company to say, listen, can you just move 500 feet or 1,000 feet or whatever and do your connection point there? I don't know the specifics of this area, of course, but I think it's a conversation to have for sure.
Did you want to address that?
Just for clarity, I mean, obviously the interconnection point has to be discussed with ComEd. It has since changed, the updated. We have had further conversations with ComEd addressing some of the concerns from the village of Manuka with the tie-in happening by East Monument Street. That has since changed. It is now directly south of the facility across Canal Road. So the interconnection point is no longer on Monument Street. It is directly south of Canal Road in the facility.
So it's no longer in front of this lady's house then?
That's, if she lives on the end of Monument Street, that is correct.
Okay, so that's good that you guys have done that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think it's something that we should look at as one of our things that we ask. You know, where's the interconnection point? How does it impact a different landowner who's not going to be benefiting from this project? And see if we can do it if they haven't done what Manuka has done. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Question for Margie.
so here's where we're at. We're gonna have to recommend or not, which goes to the full board in just over a week next Thursday. There's just seems to be a lot of questions that you weren't able to answer today. So for those reasons, I'm gonna be a no on this, and I don't know how the rest of the committee is gonna vote today. But I'm gonna come into next Thursday with an open mind. And I imagine a lot of these same questions will be asked again. I hope that you're able to answer them next Thursday in front of the whole board. So,
And Margie, one question for the driveway. The resident had also expressed some concerns about the entrance. So on page 13, it says that this is the proposed entrance on East Mondamin. And in that picture, there's a small red square, which is right next to a car and almost directly in front of that. Well, it's adjacent to the house. Is that where the driveway's going to be? Where that red square is?
I think Kelly can answer that question.
The proposed, if you look,
Like page 13?
page 13, the bottom photo, right?
I don't know, it's page 13.
Um,
Oh yeah, okay, so there's two photos, so it's the bottom photo, correct?
Yeah, so we're at the end, at that dead end right there on the street. That's the end of East Monument Street. That's where the entrance to the site is proposed.
So it's not where that red square is?
No, it would be, I guess, north, well, no, that'd be east of that, or I guess, well.
So.
So it'd be at the end of that street there, at the top of the photo more.
Okay, so the red square is
That-
just that, and would that actually, so that's right, almost looks like that's part of, or the boundary of that property. Is that why that red squares there?
I think that's just from, I took a screenshot from
Okay.
Connect Explorer and the red square is just there.
Okay, so
There's no
there's
representation.
not a lot of footage to the end of that road, so
She said
is,
it's going to be at the end.
so it will be at the end of that road,
Yes,
the entrance?
that's the proposed entrance, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone else here from the public that wants to speak on this one before we vote? Last chance. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll?
Destiny Ortiz,
No.
Jerry Newcrest,
Yes.
Cal Mitchell. Katie Dean Schlotman.
No.
Julie Berkowitz,
No.
Frankie Pretzel.
No. Okay, motion fails. Next on the agenda, number 4, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance as amended for zoning case ZC 24034. Aaron Holdings LLC, owner of record. Michael R. Martin of Dunn, Martin and Miller LTD, agent, requesting a special use permit for an outdoor storage yard. PIN number 120236300001000. This is in DuPage Township, commonly known as 13141 South High Road, Lockport, Illinois County Board District Number 9. I need a motion and a second, please. Motion Ortiz, second Mitchell. And then I will turn this to Ashlyn for a little bit more information on this.
Yeah. So for ZC 24034, they're requesting a special use permit for outdoor storage yards to store automobiles or other automobiles or vehicles, including but not limited to motorcycles, campers, recreational vehicles, boats, construction and farm equipment, and boating materials. Applicant has indicated there will be no storage of tractor, trailers, or other over-the-road trucks, and there will be no containers stored on the premises. Staff has also added this as a condition. Applicant is proposing to develop the site as a paved parking lot with about 652 parking spaces and to be secured by an 8-foot chain-linked fence with an automatic entrance gate. Per the site plan, the applicant is proposing to add landscaping around the entire property and the retention pond. Approval of a site development permit is required before any development can occur on the property. Of the agencies notified, the Village of Romeoville sent letter to staff, including 6 comments regarding the project, which was included in the staff report. Some of the main concerns were using asphalt grindings or gravel for the pavement, lack of basic facilities being included on the property, enforcement of no truck parking, and screening from adjacent properties. Staff has added conditions addressing some of the village's concerns. After the staff report was sent out, staff also received a letter from the Village of Lamont, which also addressed some of these similar concerns with the project, such as lack of facilities, the enforcement of no truck parking, and traffic concerns. This was sent out as a memo to PZC. Staff also received comments from the Lamont Fire Protection District, which included comments regarding what they will be requiring, such as ensuring that the address can be seen from the roadway, having access 24 hours, and assuring that the fire apparatus can access all parts of the facility. This was also sent out as a memo to PZC. At the Planning and Zoning meeting on July 2nd, there were 2 concerned citizens, and the board members voted to amend conditions 6 and 7, which were included in my staff report. And then they also added condition 8. With the amendments to the 8 conditions, they voted to deny it with a vote of 3 to 4. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that we did receive, I believe it was a letter from the attorney to Destiny earlier today, so I did receive that. And the attorney is also here to present a PowerPoint, I believe, if you have any questions for him.
I invite the applicant up to the microphone here or the attorney. Any questions from the committee for staff? Yeah, I'm wondering too, what is this?
So those are pictures that
He's talking about, everyone wants to know what
a
we're,
resident will be speaking, and these are copies he wanted everyone to have.
so hold on to this and
Yeah.
fill it. Okay. Hi, welcome.
Hi,
Please introduce yourself.
Michael R. Martin from Dunn, Martin and Miller, 15 West Jefferson Street, Suite 300, Joliet, Illinois. I represent the applicant and property owner, Aaron Holdings. Aaron Holdings is the real estate investment arm of my clients. They also own Venera Trucking, which is based in Romeoville, and they also have a repair shop. They employ about 250 employees, about 200 truck drivers, 50 employees in the area. So these are local businessmen. Aaron Holdings, though, is not involved in trucking. It's a development, real estate development company. And our engineer, Aramis Spruces from Morris Engineering, is also present here today. You could go to the next slide. I wanted to just kind of go through some things because there seemed to be a lot of confusion. And I know if you type in our address on MapQuest, Google, Apple Maps, you may get two different addresses depending on which service you're using. High Road's kind of a unique road in that it runs from 127th Street down south to 135th Street past the Exxon plant. Our property is in yellow there. If you go to the next slide. Looking at the immediate area of the property, this is a vacant parcel. We are immediately south of the Exxon plant. The vacant parcels to the west are owned by Citgo, as the Citgo refinery then is to the west over New Avenue. The vacant parcel to the east of us is owned by Exxon, in which their pipelines run through. Directly south of us, the smaller parcel along High Road is also owned by Citgo or through one of their holding companies. And then the kind of upside down L is owned by an individual, but out of that property, it's a C&B Landscaping Property and Management, in which it's a pretty heavy, intense use for its A1 zoning, in which I think by our count, there's about 60 trucks and tractors, equipment parked on it. If you can go to the next slide. What came up at the PZZ, and I wanted to clear up any confusion, there are no mapped wetlands on our property or actually within the immediate area. There is recorded floodplain, which is shown on blue here, that does extend south along High Road, but as you can see, it's not near our property. I wanted to bring that up because I anticipate one of the concerned residents will argue that we are impacting their drainage while his property is located within the floodplain. If you can go to the next slide. Obviously, here's our geometric plan. It's where we have not finalized it. We're still working with staff through the site development process. We're anticipating about 600 parking spots. But in order to address some of the concerns raised by the municipalities, what we've done, I think the original plan had about 650. We've since reduced that. We've created a 100-foot by approximately 200-foot paved entrance area to assist or prevent any potential dragging of the asphalt grindings that we are anticipating or planning to use for the surface area. And in addition, then there's also about a 50-foot apron that will all be paved as you enter into the property. You can go to the next slide, please. Here's our landscape plan. So this property was heavily wooded. The trees, the home, the previous resident on it have all since been demolished. We have left, though, approximately 136 trees along the perimeter. And we're proposing, as our plan, it'll have 30-foot buffer zones along the front of the property and the two side yards, and then in the backyard would be 40 feet. Pursuant to our current landscape plan up there, we're anticipating to plant 942 evergreen trees, plus an approximately 140 other trees throughout the property. We believe that would provide sufficient screening throughout, particularly when you consider the adjacent uses to our property. You can go to the next slide. And this came up at the Plan Commission, and what we asked, and it's why we requested a modification. We're proposing to use asphalt grindings. They comply with county code, as in that they're all weather surface. We're proposing to install or put in 24 inches of asphalt grindings compacted, which is sufficiently more than IDOT specifications and sufficiently more than you would see on a normal development. My clients do have a relationship with Orange Crush, so we believe we have a resource to obtain a sufficient amount of asphalt grindings. In addition to the drainage, and I have my engineer here if you have questions about the drainage, but the way the property drains is kind of unique in that there is a discharge pipe from ExxonMobil that just is an open-ended pipe that discharges into our property. As part of our improvements, we're going to bury that pipe and run it into our detention pond, and then there will be a discharge pipe from our detention pond with the restrictor plate on it. My engineer is here, of course, should you have any specific questions about the drainage. But the pond will be large enough and sufficiently to not increase any drainage south of us along High Road. The property, the water does kind of drain south and west in that entire area. The other reason for asphalt grindings is the surface is more suitable for the parking of RVs and boats, farm equipment, etc., and that leads to less maintenance and actually easier maintenance. If you're parking an RV and boats on paved concrete asphalt, it's more likely to crack, and then your repair and maintenance costs are higher. If you go to the next slide, and then obviously one of the biggest changes in regard to the asphalt grindings, the total cost, and this is just site development work. All told, my client has now, including the purchase price, has already put about $3 million into this project. That includes engineering, demolition fees, tree removal, although they told me it did not include my fees. If you look at the asphalt grindings, though, just the site development work, we're anticipating to be slightly less than $900,000. The paved surface raises that to $3.1 million. If you can go to the next slide, please. Obviously, these are the conditions that the Planning and Zoning Commission put forth, and we are agreeable to their modified conditions. I put in red, though, because one of the concerns of that meeting was that this was going to turn into a truck parking lot. My client is not spending $3 million so far and approximately at least another $1 million, I'm guessing, to develop the property to only have the special use revoked. We are perfectly fine and actually suggested this to staff that this would be a restriction from our very first pre-app meeting. This is not intended for truck parking. If it is violated, as I would hope you're aware of, the special use could be revoked. Any business license we have could be revoked. We'd be subject to ordinance and fines. Our intention is to make this an outdoor storage facility. If you go to the next slide. And then these are just the conditions as modified by the Plan Commission. These would be conditions 6, 7, and 8. You have to excuse me, I'm not the best with PowerPoint. I couldn't get it spaced properly by using numbers, so that's why there's bullets. But we are okay with all these conditions as the Planning and Zoning Commission put forth. We can go to the final slide. We believe, we offer an immense benefit. There has been significant residential development within Will County, particularly within this area, that are typically only 2-car garages. We believe many people in the area have boats, they have RVs, they have homeowners associations complaining about them being parked in the driveway. They have complaints about from neighbors and so forth. We believe there is a local need for this proposed use. Obviously, my client initially bought this property to attempt to make it a truck terminal. In our discussions with neighboring municipalities, we realized that was not a feasible option. So they're attempting to put this to an economic use, their property that they've already spent substantial sums on. Additional benefits are because of the drainage that comes off of Exxon, and with us complying with the stormwater management ordinance and our stormwater improvements, we believe will improve the drainage and stormwater within the area. Currently, right now, the property is taxed at agricultural, which it will remain agricultural. But as you know, taxation is based on use. It's indicating right now its taxes are slightly more than $2,000 a year. We anticipate those to increase once the project is built and our use is put in and the assessor comes back out. Finally, we didn't move to seek a more intense industrial use. We are keeping the less intensive A1 zoning with the special use. It's not giving us a blank slate to modify this in the future. Instead, it's giving us approval to operate what we're proposing, an outdoor storage yard for RVs, boats, tractors, trailers, motorcycles, etc., but specifically not including semi-trucks, trailers, or semi-trailers, and so forth. I'm here. I have my engineer here with me. Should you have any questions, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. I believe Member Mitchell will start us off with some questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Okay, so one of the questions is, you want to store motorcycles? I understand the boats and the RVs, but motorcycles don't they require covering? Like is there covered parking?
So when we met with staff, there will be no like awnings built. If
Okay.
people, we included motorcycles to keep it as a potential
Okay.
storage. We anticipate if you're storing a motorcycle, they may have covers they put on ourselves, but staff was not open at the time and during our initial meeting to us making covered awnings. So we're not requesting that at this time.
Or garages? You're not allowed to even have,
No, it will all be open air parking.
okay, that's one question. The next question I have is, okay, so my understanding is that you're saying that will not be any truck parking. What we're being told is there are trucks there currently. So are there trucks there currently?
No, the property is completely vacant. Any trucks that anyone may notice are most likely, there's trucks entering and coming from the Exxon plant on a daily basis. And then the property to the south, the landscape company operates out of, I think there are 5 to 6 semi-dump trucks parked on that property, plus a bunch of landscape material and additional landscaping trucks. But on our current property, it is fully vacant at this time.
Okay, so you don't have any trucks on your,
No, my client has a truck parking area in Romaville already that they utilize.
No, I'm saying on this
Yeah,
property.
On this property, though, no,
Proposed.
this is completely, it's completely vacant now, and it would not have any semi-truck trailer parking in the future.
okay, because we're getting conflicting reports. That's why I'm asking. My understanding is from, one of the neighbors that there are actually trucks on that lot. So I just wanted to have that statement out public.
No, there are no trucks on our lot. I know various neighbors have been less than copacetic when they drive by and anytime we're doing any work, particularly during our tree removal to our employees. So I don't know if they're referring to when we had some tree removal trucks out there, because there were a substantial amount of trees removed on the interior of the property last fall.
And finally, we received this packet regarding some flooding. You kind of mentioned that. Can we just discuss that, just get that off the table, or, discuss what's on the table, which is the flooding of one of your neighbor's properties ever
Yes.
since you've
I
done that?
received those this morning as well, and I know they were presented at the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you could go back to the floodway. My understanding is the neighbor who is complaining about flooding is located within the recorded floodplain by FEMA, the little jagged part that crosses High Road. His property is the southern parcel kind of within the backward shaping E. My client does also own that backward shaping E. That property is no way relation to this. I think a lot of comments made at the Planning and Zoning Commission about past approvals seeking and rerouting of 135th Street were actually directed at that property, which is not before you. Our property is 2 properties to the north, highlighted in yellow. Of course, I have my engineer here if you'd like some more technical details about the drainage.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about yeah, go ahead. I just want to talk about this topic and get some clarity on it. Is this causing drainage to your neighbor? No, I mean, flood to your neighbor? Not?
Yes, thank you. Aaron Maspuchis, Morris Engineering. The flow pattern is from north to south, right? And currently, all that water comes and gets concentrated. There is a steeper ravine almost where that you see the finger, right? And FEMA mapped that years ago based on the trib area to the property and the discharge, right? So sometimes when they map it, there's a complaint from the residents that I do flood and they claim the insurance. And that kicks in the FEMA to look at it, and FEMA sometimes assigns that floodplain zone, but this zone is unstudied, so they don't have an established elevations. They know it floods, but to do a full study, to put the recorded elevations, you got to go through the study of the whole area and then come up with that capacity of that finger and to say this is the height of the water. What our client, the property owner is doing, and this already went through, I believe, one or two, the engineering reviews at the county. The stormwater facility is positioned in the middle of a property where the existing ditch was, and the discharge location did not move. It stayed the same where it was. And the difference is from having an open ditch discharge, the future detention pond will have a 7-inch restrictor. So it's a relatively small hole. The pipe that we're taking from the north, it's a 12 inches. So we're even restricting the flow that comes from the north. So we will fill up our pond, even at the smaller rain events, it will fill up and detain the water and release it at the slower pace. Plus, the bottom of a pond gets basically foot or two at the bottom, so there's a BMP component to it, which promotes infiltration and improves the water quality. So that also, I think it's important, because we're getting water from north, which is the Citgo plant, right?
So
they would help with that.
So for clarity, what you're saying is you're going to put it in a detention pond and it will help the water issues, the flooding issues.
I'm not sure about the flooding issues. I did not see the picture.
It will help
but what it
control
will
where the
do-
water is going, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so we're meeting the stormwater ordinance, releasing less water under proposed condition based on what's the current release rate is. So that's, I think, one of the county requirements here.
Have you done anything on this property already that would cause any sort of flooding?
So what was done, the tree removal was done in the wintertime, and we were trying to hit the window basically between the December and April, for all the bats and everything. So that's IDOT approved tree removal window for any project. And I think we worked with the staff, and we basically indicated that's how we left the buffer for the landscaping, try to still screen it, but everything on the inside got removed. The area through the middle is relatively flat, so across the whole property, I believe there's only like 3 or 4 feet of fall, north to south, one east to west is a lot steeper. So the area in the middle, right now, that's where the ditch was and is currently. So that's maybe what.
But you haven't done any grading, you haven't
No.
added any asphalt, you haven't removed
No,
any ditches
nothing.
or culverts, so.
Yeah.
So if there's any flooding going on right now, it has nothing to do with you
No,
or your property?
no.
Okay. Right, okay. I have a couple questions for you. So, I'm looking at the same packet that it sounds like you received. And I believe it's High Road that we're looking at. One of these notes says not wide enough for 2 trucks. And then if I look at just a couple pages over, it shows the picture of the bridge with the pipelines
Yes.
on 127th Street, I believe. So, and I don't know if you even need to see the pictures. I know you know what I'm talking about. So I believe one of the concerns is because of the low clearance of the bridge with the pipelines, an RV or a fifth wheel or something more than 13 feet tall would have to go a different route.
I believe the actual clearance it may be marked as 13.3. I know Lamont has paved over it, so I don't know how accurate that is. Our anticipation is that the vast majority of equipment, RVs and boats, will fit through there. If they cannot, they can enter coming from like traveling north on High Road. However, we are aware there is a weight limit restriction. So we are including those restrictions within our license agreements, that if anyone should, violate the weight limits, they'll be subject to tow and revocation of their license and so forth. If you have a truck that is, or a boat, let's say you have a boat that's 18 feet high and weighs more than 5 tons, then this isn't the right property for you to park at. You wouldn't be able to access it due to the weight limit restrictions to the south on High Road. It's kind of a goofy road in that Lamont's jurisdiction ends just past our driveway, our property, and then Romeoville maintains it to the south. So we are going to have to, market the property and let them, we will let our customers know that there are limitations on access. You can't be higher than 13.3 feet, about 13 feet or so, and you can't weigh more than 5 tons if you'd like to travel the other way.
Good. And do you have any data? I've heard it before, but I don't remember, on people that store a RV, a boat. How often are they visiting the site?
Typically, from personal experience 3 to 4 times a year, but we have not done any like studies on it, so forth.
Right. A lot of this is winter storage, right? Like,
A lot of it, we anticipate a lot of it winter storage.
so they
Which they
drop
pull
it off in October, pick it back up in May,
Yes.
something
Mhm.
like that. Okay.
Did you want to add something?
And I just wanted to add, one comment about the high road. So the high road is an FAU route. It's a federal route, basically. So, and that's mapped on CMAP website. And when Lamont used, they got the federal money to repave the project, which basically to the south limits of our property. And that was done, I want to say, like 10 years ago. And which again, at that time, the Federal Highway Authority would look at the cross-section and the road geometry and say, it meets the requirement, because they don't just give you money, right? You have to meet the requirement to get the money. And that's the plan. Like I said, we do have a plan copy, from that set, and that underpass at the time was called out at 13.7 on the IDOT plans, which, we believe that's how it was paved or was constructed years ago. But because of the maintenance and, Citgo doing their own maintenance, before Lamont took over, I think that cross-section just kept growing instead of, you're supposed to grind, patch, resurface. Some people just keep building it up, and you see that in the residential districts when roadway just ends up higher than a driveway over years, and everyone is puzzled. Then I think commissioners are fighting, with the residents over that. But so I just want to point out, like I said, this is because if the new avenue is under, I don't want to say construction of the issue, the first detour would be a high road by the federal, highway authority.
Member Berkowitz?
Thank you. Okay, so is this facility, does it have a locked gate?
Yes, so it would be what we're proposing, and what the front end would be a board-on-board 6-foot fence, and then there would be a chain link fence at 8 feet high around the side and rear yards. Mainly as what we discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission was because of the amount of trees we're planting, it would be difficult to maintain board-on-board throughout the side yards. But then the front yards would have entrance gates. They would be equipped with what's called an Opticon receiver, which would provide access at any time to emergency vehicles. I believe they're actually activated by the emergency lights, and then customers would have pins or an app to access, but it would be locked at all times.
Okay, so there's no need to man it because there's an electronic entrance.
Correct.
All right, and then I was just wondering, do we have a minimum for permeable surfaces for these types of projects? I would imagine the retention pond is filling that requirement here.
Yeah, usually on-site detention is required for any project that puts down more than 25,000 square feet of new impervious. So-
Okay, thank you. So the Romeoville village manager had a couple of concerns. She had mentioned that there were no restrooms on site, but since this isn't manned, that doesn't appear to be a concern. But she did specifically express concerns about truck parking and trailers, and just wanted to make sure that would be complied with. So is that part of the special permit language that we have?
It's a specific condition. It's number 3. That's the
Yeah,
one I had put in red. The parking, and number 4 also pertains to cargo containers. But it's a specific condition that if we violate, our special use permit could be revoked, our business license could be revoked.
Will this be a special permit that is transferable if they were to sell the property?
I believe it is transferable.
Okay.
Yes.
So if they were to sell the property, how does the county, because it's transferable, how does the county keep their records of ownership up to date? Does the new owner come in and then you update the special use permit, or does it remain in the previous property owner's name.
The new owner would be bound by the
The-
same restrictions.
So, I mean,
How is the name updated on the special use
in terms
permit?
of the special use permit, it runs with the land. So if it's transferable, even if the tax bills reflect an ownership change, the special use would continue as long as the use continued. And any conditions approved as part of that special use would be subject to future owners as well.
But the ownership of the property is not updated with the sale of a property.
Well, it's updated within the tax records, but in terms of the land use
In the
department.
land
we-
use
we
records,
look at
it's
in
not.
terms
Yeah.
of the zoning district and if there's a GIS.
I had an incident in my industrial
records.
park. That was the exact. So,
So with
okay.
regards to our GIS map, it would run with the zoning district, essentially. So as property owners change, the district would not necessarily change, but it would reflect there's a special use with conditions upon the property.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So you were talking about using asphalt grindings,
Correct.
but condition number 7 says a hard surface material should be used for the lot in place of gravel or asphalt grindings. So I'm a little confused.
So the Planning and Zoning Commission modified that condition unanimously to allow us to use, and if you can go back to my condition slide, it would requiring us to construct it with an impervious or a porous surface such as asphalt grindings. Due to their, asphalt grindings, one of their nature's benefits is they accept water and then hard it. Yeah. So that condition, the second bullet point there is what the Planning and Zoning Commission modified that condition to. That was staff's original recommendation, which I think was based on some of the letters from Lamont and Romeoville. We've been upfront from the get-go. If this is required to be fully paved, the cost may outweigh the benefit, and we most likely would not move forward. The porous surface, though, with the asphalt grindings, which we have access to them at this time from our past relationships, is what we've always proposed from our initial pre-app meeting through here. And then we're okay with the requirement that we put 24 inches, which is, I think, 16 inches higher than IDOT specifications. So.
So is Romeoville and Lamont, have they continued to object to these as far as you know? I realize you're not Romeoville, Lamont.
I don't want to speak for them. I know our engineers have had some discussions with them, particularly because we would have to work with Lamont to not only get a construction access permit, but a full entranceway permit. And my understanding is Lamont has indicated if we're approved at the county, they're not going to hold up our access permit. But again, I don't want to speak for Lamont. I've had some conversations a few weeks ago, but nothing recent. I'm not sure if they've seen, we've updated our plans, obviously, in response, adding that larger entrance area that is paved. So.
Any other questions from the committee? Oh, Member Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Pretzel. I have a question about the trees. You said you were going to be planting some trees. Are they going to be native to Illinois trees?
Aramis, you want to come up? It's hard for me to read the full legend, but they're obviously compliance with county code, using as many native plantings as possible. If you could maybe expand.
Yes, and I believe the first submittal, we had some additional trees and the county made a comment on that they did not want to see certain species. So list got updated based on county ordinance. So the new list that was submitted, it's all, there's a nice oaks and, things like that.
Yeah, the Forest Preserve just brought it to the board's attention that sometimes when we have companies come and replant, they aren't necessarily using native plants, and it's harder and they're sometimes invasive. So I just wanted to be sure that we were using native things. Thank you.
Yes, we may change them.
Okay, thank you, guys. Don't go far. I have a feeling we'll have more questions. Do we have anybody here from the public that wants to speak on this one? I think I see some people in the back. I invite you up to the microphone. Ma'am, would it be easier if you just sat in this chair right here in the back? We can turn the microphone on for you. That's fine with me. Thank you. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself.
How you doing? My name is Dave Wilkes. I live at 13411 South High Road. There's only two houses on that property, mine and Kyle's down that road. I've lived there for 30 years. First lie they got, they took and they filled the pond in that was there. 25 years ago, I dug that pond, okay? So that's a lie. They changed, they took that pond out of there. The water used to go to Mobiles. Mobile at the top took and rerouted some of their water and are dumping it that way. Their property behind theirs, they're putting in a solar field for Mobile because they have to do that for the Go Green stipulation. The other solar field that's going in is going to be on Smith Road, and that one is going to be for Sitco's. Ms. Ortiz has been down there for that one, everything else. We protested that one, everything else for the land. They took all your land from Will County and they annexed it into Lamont. There's a solar field going there, which Lamont flat out lied, says there's nothing going to be built there. Sitco wants everything green space. They don't want nothing built. They don't want anything up, especially High Road. George from Lamont flat out said at the meeting, I have it on my phone, it's in the dockets, nothing will be built on High Road. George also said he's not going to give them a curb cut. In your packet, you got on there, you're waiting for DuPage Township for the curb cut for the property. The road's got nothing to do with DuPage Township. DuPage Township gave that road away probably 15 years ago. Half of it, like he said, is Lamont's, the other half is Romeoville's. Lamont's end of the road, you can look at them pictures, they don't cut the sides of the road, they don't maintain the road. Me and Kyle half the time plow the road because they won't even plow it in the wintertime. Their excuse is, well, it's the last piece of road before we go back down on our maintenance building, we'll get it later. They don't maintain or take care of that road. The road is falling apart. It is a narrow road. It's only 16 feet wide, edge to edge. If you put two trucks on that road, one is going on the side. They're not on the road. That's the next problem. Another concern, my yard, that's the picture of my yard that's flooded. 30 years, my yard never flooded. The only time the water ever come up is first thing in the spring. If the ground is frozen, we have a heavy rain or else the water comes up. My yard floods now since they dug that pond out. They took and they dug a trench from the pond to Sitco's property. The water didn't go that way before. It went towards Mobile. Okay? There is no pond, there is no creek, there's no waterway on Sitco's property. They're dumping it into the woods, which in turn goes onto Kyle's property, which floods their driveway, and then it comes to my property and it floods my backyard. This retention pond they're building, I don't know how big it is. There's nothing on there that says the depth and everything else. 1 inch of water is like 270,000 gallons of water. On 20 acres, it's over 500,000 gallons of water. That retention pond is not going to be that big. You look at the other docket on there, I have the center highlighted. That land holds water almost all the time. That's why Ed never built anything, had anything done with it. That's why it was all in trees. Because he couldn't build on, couldn't do it on it. I call it swampland, let's say. All that dirt is like fine permia on your dockets for the land use. 45% of that property is considered humus or whatever else. It holds water and it will flood. Now, if they're putting 24 inches of grindings on it, are they going to dig it out and put it so they ain't raising it? Or are they putting 24 inches above what the property is now? Because they do that, they're going to be dumping all the water towards us and towards Mobile. You know, there's a lot of concerns with this. That property, the center of that property is probably 12 feet lower than the street and to the back. It's in a big V, goes down. It floods. So that's another big issue. There ain't nobody around here. I'm still on, I'm in Cook County Farm Bureau, all right? My parents still farm, my aunt still farms, all the farmers around us. Ain't nobody gonna bring farm equipment there to get it parked. Anybody that's got farm equipment is gonna park it on their own property or in their own barns. Like you said, motorcycles, nobody's gonna park motorcycles out there. You know, this is a dog and pony show. They did buy that property there. They went to Lamont, tried to get it annexed in. Lamont says they can't do it because they don't have tag and ties in. They went to Romeoville, couldn't get it in. And at that time is when George told them they couldn't get the curb cut. So then they took and they bought the 20 acres that circles around my property. And they were going to figure they're going to go in from there and come down. Will County DOT, Kyle, you can talk to him, will not give them a curb cut on 135th Street because it's too dangerous. The only way they can come in is off a high road. High road is a 5-ton load limit. They can't bring that stuff in and out of there. Last year, Don Caldwell from Romeoville sent me a letter that they're going to close down 127th for a week because they're going to bring the one high line up and go across. And I called her up. I says, you can't do it. You're going to destroy that road. Oh, Dave, don't worry about it. It's only going to be for a week. 3 days, they destroyed the road in front of my house down there. It cost them over $2 million to repave that road and everything else. They only cut it, ground it, and they put it back to 5-ton low limit. They can't afford to pay to make that thing 76,000 pounds for truck weight. Next thing is 127th Street. From High Road to Smith Road, it's 25-ton low limit. So you can't go up and down 127th Street. My road is 5 tons. The other side of the road on Smith or High Road is 7-ton low limit. Smith Road South is 5-ton low limit. So them trying to get in there and everything else with heavy equipment and else, not going to fly. Look at like the second or third picture that's in there. The property's up for sale. So why would you want to change the zoning and everything else for, there's a picture of the sign that's on the property now that it's for sale. And if you look at the thing for that property, lo and behold, they got on here, it's zoned for manufacturing. No, it's not. Heavy equipment storage, recreation vehicles, construction material, and solar facility. You know, if they're saying they're going to build this, why is it for sale? He bought the thing for $2.3 million. This guy's telling me they want $6 million for the property. If you people are going to change the zoning so this guy can just profit and make $4 million off this property, that's totally unacceptable and it is wrong. Like I said, they bought the property all around me and they're trying to get in. They tried to buy Kyle's property out. They come to me. They tried to buy me out. I flat out told them then, I'm not moving. I've lived there for 30 years. I've retired 2 years ago. I plan on staying there. I'm not leaving. That road on your DOT thing there, they say 300 trucks or 300 vehicles a day come down that road. Again, that's not even close. Where they put the sensors on the road, they didn't put them in the right spots, let's say. 300 trucks a day go through Citgo's terminal. Okay, I'm sorry. 300 trucks a day go through Mobile's terminal. They go up to the top next to the property that they're proposing for. They turn in. They come out the other side, they go back down. No trucks go down High Road to my end. And if they do, we got an excellent standing. Kyle will tell you the same thing. Any tanker, anybody that sneaks down our end of the road, we call them, tell them what time it was. If we do get the name off the truck, we let them know. They go on their cameras, they look at it, they tell whoever it is that run that truck down that road, they do it again, they're banned from the terminal. You know, so my end of the road, I can tell you exactly what goes down that end of the road. 3 buses, 1 garbage truck, my 2 vehicles, Kyle's 4, and some of their landscaping. The other landscaping stuff goes the other side. You can look at them pictures and see that thing backs up from Mobile down to 127th to New Avenue, and on New Avenue it fills with trucks. Citgo's terminal does 800 trucks a day. There's no way you can get in and out of that property with all them trucks down there. All the pictures are in there. They said that they're gonna, they left all these trees, 100 and some trees. I got the pictures with arrows on them, all the dead ones. Now, if they do any more work on that property, the rest of them trees are gonna die because they're disrupting the roots. Next problem I got is they filled that pond in, they cut all them trees down, they chipped all them trees on that property. All them chippings come down through mine and Kyle's property now. They did not put a silt fence around it. They ground all the stumps out. If you look at them pictures, you'll see the pictures, there's garbage dumped on that property. They don't do nothing, they don't maintain it. Look at your Will County sign. It's buried. You can't even read the sign. But you can read the for sale sign for the property. You know, I can keep going on with the problems and issues on this property and land. Biggest thing is they got it for sale. So why would you want to change zoning? And he wants it for outside storage? Come on. They own trucking terminals. And the recommendations from Romeoville and Lamont all want an asphalt hard, not grindings. 24 inches of grindings, you're not going to drain any water through it. It's going to run off the top of it. You don't have to be a rocket science to figure out, I don't care if you put 24 inches of clay on it. It's going to run off the top. It's not going to soak into the ground. So my big concern is this is like a dog and pony show, and they're flat out lying what they want to do with this property, and it's for sale. If it's for sale, why do you want to build an outside storage terminal? And then the next thing is he's already spent, like he said, $3 million on it. What are you proposing to rent these spots out to recoup your money? And they're 12 by 40 footers back to back. So there's nothing on it. That's the next one. Are they going to paint lines on the grindings and put numbers for the stalls? First truck that goes on or a car that goes on is going to wipe it out. But 20 by 80, put trucks, semis, whatever, you know, or 12 by 80, sorry. I mean, it's, read between the lines, people. What they're doing or what they're saying and what they want to do, to me, it's all lies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, another thing is that pond, since there's nobody there, it's unmanned, everything else. Kyle has 3 little kids. Some kids go in there and they drown in that pond. It's gonna be a big issue. Doesn't that pond have to be fenced in, closed in? You know, that's a big issue. You got the people are gonna be bringing their motorhomes and everything else, if the people got kids and they're running around there and they run and they fall in that pond.
I mean,
Big issue.
every subdivision has pond.
A question while he's coming up. Okay, this is a question for staff. So he mentioned that there was an existing pond that was filled in on this property. Is that correct?
Is that correct?
I don't.
I will attempt to address that based on aerial photography. It does, and I'm looking at the contours of the property. It does look like there was a lower area where water would collect. Based going back several years, it doesn't really look like a pond, but I've never been to the site and I can't verify that. And I'm looking at the 2024 aerial, which was taken in April of this year, and there's still water sitting in that same area.
I asked you if you've done any excavating or moving of earth, and you said no. Do you stand by that? It's accurate. Just cutting down trees is all you've done.
So
No regrading.
So to your response, Brian, since there's sitting water, you can see it there. Where did that water go?
So I'm going to use the contours that that were taken in the these are from 2021, and that's part of our GIS mapping. And like it was stated before, the property does decline in elevation generally from east to west. However, there is a small portion in the middle of the property where it would be draining from the south to the north. And you know, provided all the statements are accurate about not doing any regrading, it would still look like that would be the case. So in the center of the property, there's a lower area, and I can't tell you the exact size, but I mean, it's noticeable in aerial photography where the water is sitting there. But I don't know. I mean, they call it a pond. It looks to me just like a lower area of the property. And as water drains from south to north, it collects there. And then it had like a little small outlet from that area down to the south.
Is that
Ashland is
water
pulling it up now.
drainage the same, or
Yeah, if you
are
look
they
at
changing
it,
it?
it looks generally the same, but you know, that's just going off aerial photography.
So So how can you park vehicles if it's an area where there's going to be standing water?
Well, the site, if this project is approved and they make the proposed enhancements, that would be in conformance with the county's adopted regulations for site development, then the stormwater management facility would capture all of this water, with the existing drainage patterns, and which appear to be towards the center of that property. And so based on the initial proposal, it looks correct that that's where you would have the stormwater management facility, almost in the area of where this lower area is, but everything would be graded and water would be directed to that area.
The Soil and Water Conservation District, they expressed concerns and they warned about soil issues, construction concerns, if soil issues are not addressed. And that's on page 14 in our packet. So have those concerns, are they being addressed? Are they working with soil and water to make sure that that is addressed?
It's most likely they will not be working with soil and water. That report is just identifying some of the possible, when you're developing a site, it's identifying possible concerns that could need to be addressed depending on the type of construction that they're proposing. Soils can be engineered to, accommodate any type of development, that somebody wants to do if they want to, go through the cost of making those enhancements. For the parking lot, as you heard, we're talking about a 24-inch thick asphalt grindings layer. That's substantial. So I would think that would help with the soil itself. And I want to point out that even though the county's code that we do require stormwater management, we don't look at asphalt grindings as any different as pavement or concrete. You don't get any benefit of potential infiltration just because you did asphalt grindings. For stormwater management, we still look at that like it was concrete. So there may be some benefit by doing asphalt grindings for some infiltration, but we're still going to look at it as if it was a hard surface and there was none.
Have we had any impact from the local industry regarding this, the access or the additional traffic coming into that area? I'm wondering, does Mobile or Citgo, do they feel comfortable with the public driving in that area with their personal vehicles?
I mean, I'm not aware of any specific issue. That doesn't mean that there isn't any, though.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if we did reach out to them and see if they had any feedback. I do know they were kind enough to bring us on site a couple years ago for a tour, and they were very concerned about, what was going on around their facility and just for security reasons as well. So I'd feel more comfortable if we had that feedback from them. Are they even aware of this project?
They were notified of the zoning because they are abutting to the north.
Thanks for your patience. You can step up to the microphone.
Say good morning, but I guess it's afternoon at this point. My name is Kyle Lepowski. I'm at the adjacent property, 13247 High Road. My biggest concerns are traffic. As David mentioned, I have 3 little ones. And as of lately, traffic has been getting heavier and faster. With no regards. I have antique farm equipment. We run it out. Just the other day, nobody, all of a sudden the blind curve, some guy almost smashed into me with my kids on the back of a wagon. That is one of my biggest concerns, is the speeding traffic and the overweight traffic. One of the buses over the summer has nothing to do with this, but traffic in general, the blind curve as you get from my property to Sitco to the proposed property here is such a blind curve that my buses have to crawl through there. And there's times the buses cannot even get through because of all the truck traffic. I know David brought in pictures with all that. My second concern is the water. Not so much what you're doing with it, but how it affects all of us down the way. Last year, we got the heavy rain. When we get the heavy rains, I cannot get across my driveway. On the lower half of it, I'm shaped just like the proposed property. We're both Bs here. My biggest concern is try to get to and from the back. As for use, asphalt grindings, is it something being dug down for 24 inches? Is it being brought up? Is the valley being covered to, I guess, potentially flatten all of that there? So is it coming out of the back, out of the front to fill in the middle with your drainage proposal to the pond? And then asphalt over top of it? Like I said, my water concerns, I have kids, I have the dogs, and traffic. Traffic is my, I will get picture of that from my property looking north. I do have it. I did not bring it today. Unfortunately, I was not really prepared to come today. I lost my father this morning at 5 o'clock. So this was kind of like, stay with family or come here. I wanted to come here and at least voice my concerns. Unfortunately, I'm gonna cut myself short so I can get back to the family. My biggest concerns, like I said, traffic, fencing, security, and the other thing I had read was something about lighting. I don't know if that property is supposed to be continuously lit. With me being adjacent to it, we do have a woods buffer, but that is a lot of light. I fight with Sitco on it too, but that was my other biggest concern. And then I have noticed recently a lot of four-wheeler tracks starting to come through. I don't know if it's just the weather. I don't know if you guys have noticed any extra tracks, but through the backside of mine, I have noticed I've been letting the grass get tall and there's tracks. So I don't know if people are going out. A couple months back, we heard a bunch of trucks out on the property. And it sounded like they were getting stuck. So I just wanted,
We'll invite you back up, but we have one more
but no,
comment. Yeah.
that's all. Like I said, I'll get a recap of everything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And my biggest, like I
Sorry to
said-
hear about your father.
Yep, thank you.
Good afternoon.
A little bit high for me. My name is Sandy Brzezinski. I'm one of the directors of CARE, Citizens Against Ruining the Environment. I spoke at the zoning committee meeting. First and foremost, I want to bring up, it's been mentioned with this the truck traffic or the future potential truck traffic. In my opinion, this is nothing more than getting their foot in the door with the zoning. Because once they get this, they're going to be back, I believe, for truck traffic. One of the biggest issues I had at the zoning was enforcement. In my opinion, you list options. Options without enforcement or oversight are useless. It's like the fox guarding the hen house. You're going to have a 24/7 operation here. Where is any enforcement when things go down over there? You have a situation now with the asphalt chips. I take issue to state that they're similar to concrete or they're similar to, these are asphalt chips. Okay, you can pack them down, but by the very nature, there's going to be some runoff, of course. But guess what's going to happen? They're going to percolate through. And where is it going? It's going to our groundwater. It's going to the aquifers. This is a major, major problem. This is a major concern for everybody who uses water. It states it here as far as maintenance. If there is any maintenance, is maintenance going to be used? They added a number 8 option onto, I believe she added a 8 at the planning and zoning that states that only maintenance would be used to get the vehicle out. Well, who's going to be monitoring any of this? I mean, what if these maintenance needs, what if there's an oil leak? Where's the oil going? I mean, it's just, to me, it's unbelievable that you're even you're even considering this type of operation. A 24/7, no oversight. I mean, this is like, this is exactly what I want. 24/7. I mean, come to my house and let me do something like this. No oversight. I was told at the zoning that Will County is a, I believe it's, if you have an issue, a problem, you call it. That's what kind of county it is. So there's basically no enforcement. The only enforcement I seen was under the staff recommendations upon 14 days. It's number 1 under their a condition where Will County Land Use and Will County Sheriff's employees are hereby granted the right to upon the premises and purpose of inspection. What about the rest of the time? What about the 24/7 operation? What about, who knows who's going to be coming and going over there? Okay, you got an 8-foot fence, so you're saying that fence is going to keep everybody out, or who knows what's coming in there? Let's see. Also, the situation with the with designating this A1 under a special use. You maintain that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public's health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. You had 2 people that live in close proximity to this. I would venture to guess they would disagree with this. And the basis of this, and I was going to ask why, and it was stated, it is staff's professional opinion that the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public's health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Look, and then using this, looking at the surrounding area of the subject property, most of the existing uses are classified as intensive industrial use. Staff finds that the proposed use will be less hazardous than the existing industrial uses occurring adjacent to the property. But you're talking about adjacent. You're not talking about what the property is now. The property is A1. I mean, these people have lived out there and enjoyed, and now you're to say that this will not impact them is ludicrous. But yet you're saying this fulfills your own criteria. Again, that the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. I don't even understand how you can state that these in your own book as far as permitting a special use under an A1. Normally, under any circumstance, to bring something of this magnitude, this outdoor storage and what they're proposing, I believe would fit probably in the I3 zoning, a heavy industrial. And just because you've got other zoning down the block that's high industry doesn't mean, well, let's go forward and do this. I just think this is horrible. I think this 24/7 operation should not be included in this. I don't know what you can do to protect not only the residents out there, but all of us. I actually live in Lockport, and the traffic, I don't know if anybody's been through Lockport lately, the traffic from whether it's trucks, just an exorbitant amount of traffic that's coming through our town is unbelievable. To allow this and possibly down in the future, more of this, I don't know I mean, this is what you want. You want Will County to be known as the truck terminal of America. I mean, it's just, I just ask that this not be allowed. And again, I will refer to these, with this maintenance, and I will refer to these chips, that this is nothing more than you're going to have a mess on your hands, and this is going to be contaminating our groundwater and the aquifers. It's a problem. It's not only for the problem of residents over there, it's a problem for the whole area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wants to speak on this one? Okay. All right. There was a lot there I'm sure you want to address, but I'm just going to ask you a couple questions.
That would be perfectly fine with me.
So you are going to be digging out before you add 24 inches of asphalt chips. You're not just adding it on the existing space.
Correct. It's not just getting placed on top. In fact, we are simultaneously have filed the site development permit seeking this. So we have produced existing condition topographical studies. We've produced grading plans, topographical studies to the land use department, which are being reviewed under our site development permit. But in regards to the actual pavement, it will be dug down and then placed. I did want to clarify one thing. My client informed me that a little while ago, Orange Crush was there to actually test the soil in case we do get approval to see how the grindings could be placed before we offer to place 24 inches of them. So
Got it. And that would be graded towards the retention area?
all the grading would be towards the detention area pursuant to the engineering plans. My engineer can certainly answer those questions more adequately than me, but yes.
Once work begins on the site, assuming you get permits, you would place silt fencing,
Typically, that's a requirement within the county.
but again, no work has begun yet, so you
No
haven't
work has
done that.
begun. Yes, no grading work has begun, and that's actually confirmed by looking back at our engineering drawings. I think the initial, elevations were shot almost a year ago. So they've shot this throughout the year, so.
As far as kids riding dirt bikes, four-wheelers, swimming in any water, you're going to put a fence up if you get a permit on this and
Yeah, so the fence, if you could, the fence, so it'll be 8 feet board on board in the front along High Road with plantings in front of it. The fence then we're proposing along the side and rear yards, or it would be, 6 feet board on board with plantings in front of it along High Road. And then it would be a 6-foot fence along the side perimeters in the backyard with the plantings more behind it. But so the pond, the parking area would all be completely enclosed.
so essentially people would be less likely to go.
They
play
would
on
have
this
to
property.
climb a fence,
Right.
an 8-foot fence.
Is there going to be lighting?
So as of now, we're currently not intending to install any, but we may in the future. It depends a lot on lighting adds an extreme element of cost. It depends, if we develop a marketplace for this. And we'll work with staff where they've made us well aware that if we do intend to install lighting, we have to comply with the sign ordinance, would have to file a separate permit for lighting, and so forth. So lighting may come in the future, but we would go through the appropriate channels to receive those approvals.
And the for sale sign, do you want to address that?
My client, as I said, Aaron Holdings is a real estate development holding company. I mean, they're doing residential developments in Downers Grove. They've done other commercial industrial developments throughout. What they're, obviously though, with my client's main business being a trucking company, the ebbs and flows of the trucking business, they buy property to either make money off it or sell it. So what we're marketing for is this. We're not marketing it for anything else. So if we get approval, if we don't get approval, we'll have to go back and readdress that. So
Okay. Those are my questions. Is there anything that I missed that you want to touch on?
let me just. I mean, I'm going to let my engineer speak after me real quick because I know there's a couple technical comments he'd like to make. But I want to address we're surrounded. If you could go back, Ashlyn, to the that maybe the one before it. We're surrounded by an Exxon plant right to the north of us, Citgo to the west of us, vacant property owned by Exxon, which pipelines run through to the east of us, a smaller parcel owned by Citgo that is vacant, and then a very heavy industrial like landscape business directly to the south of us that has substantially increased in size and made modifications, most likely without approval. But we believe this is the appropriate use for a property next to particularly the two oil plants and refineries. I don't think you're going to find someone who'd want to build a home next to Exxon. And with the current zoning, we believe this is, a least intense use. We're not asking for a blanket state. The outdoor storage is allowed as special uses in I-1, I-2, and a permitted use in I-3. We didn't think the county board would have, would permit us to get a blanket slate for future high-intense development. We're specifically seeking only approval for this development and for this use, while maintaining the lower end zoning. If we don't put it to this use, it lapses by statute. If we violate it, it can lapse by law, and so forth. But this is our intended use, and we believe it's appropriate for this area based on the immediately adjacent uses to the property. So I'm going to let my engineer get up here and answer a couple of the engineering comments and questions that were raised.
Yes, thank you. I just want to go over a little bit over the construction sequence here, how, and the reason I think we're applying or submitted for both permits, through site development and going through this process, we want to be ready to basically, if we would get the approval to site development, we don't have to spend 6 months waiting. I mean, it's ready to go, right? The first thing that gets done, obviously, erosion control, silt fencing around the property. And the second thing, and that's like in every development, you do dig the pond, you install the stormwater facility, because this whole site drains through that pond. And that would be the first step that, like I said, I think you will see the big decrease in water because it's only 7 inches leaving, the site. And if your culvert, the resident left, if he's got a driveway culvert that usually is a 12 inches minimum, our water coming out of the 7 inches, theoretically, if there's a positive drainage through the site, it should not, affect his driveway, should flow through the 12-inch pipe because it's coming out of the 7 inches. And so that's usually the first step, to establish the pond. Now, Orange Crush, they did the 20 the test holes throughout the site, and the area where we're proposing the pond, it was chosen for a reason. It's the lowest on the property, right at the discharge point, but also that's the area that's got 2 feet of topsoil / I don't know, I'm not a soils guy, but material that basically is not suitable for construction. And the way they're going to approach the project, and we talked about it, the rest of the site coming east and west, there's probably, maybe a foot of cut of topsoil. There's a big business for topsoil if someone wants to get it. If not, because, we do need to make it line stable throughout the pond area, they were thinking to dig down a little deeper, basically take the good clay, put the bad soil back in at the bottom of a pond. The bad soil for construction is a great soil for the environment because now it promotes the infiltration, the water go through filters, and all the BMPs are basically you designing with that intent. And that's just a very standard construction, methods to do it. The question I think was about the size of the pond. So our pond is about 3 acres. So on the 20-acre property, it's 15% of the property. It's a detention pond. It has a 4-foot bound, so it's basically 4 foot deep, which again meets the county ordinance. And acre feet, if that makes sense, we got 8.6 acre feet of volume in the pond. So if you take the acre, it's 8 feet deep. That's the cube that gives you, how big the pond is, so we could store all that water. So I think we will improve a lot, properties downstream and the existing ditches. We should see a lot less water, coming out of it. And lighting, I think you did address that, so.
All right, thank you. Questions from the committee? Well,
it's 8.6 acres.
A gallon of water. I'll get you it up.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're prepared to vote on this. Is there anybody else from the public on this one? Okay, go ahead, Dawn. Thank you.
Special use permit for outdoor storage yard with 8 conditions. Destiny Ortiz. Jerry Newquist.
Yes.
Al Mitchell. Katie Dean Schlattman. Julie Berkowitz.
No.
And Chairman Frankie Pretzel.
Yes.
3 to 3 fails.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, ordinance amending the Will County, Illinois zoning ordinance adopted and approved for zoning case ZC 24041. Mark and Kimberly Hanson, owner of record, Jeremy Price of Renewable Properties, agent, and Benjamin Jacoby of Polsinelli PC, attorney, requesting a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility. PIN number 0825073000250000 in Westlake Township, commonly known as vacant Rivals Road, Wilmington, Illinois, County Board District Number 1. I need a motion and a second, please. We have a motion and a second, and I will turn this over to staff or Jesus.
Yes, thank you. So like was mentioned, this is a special use permit for a commercial solar energy facility. And before I get started, I wanted to mention there were 2 memos sent out today. The first memo was further emails of rejection from concerned citizens. And the second memo sent out today was a letter from the developer, kind of addressing some concerns that were brought up during the PZC meeting. Yeah, so like you mentioned, this property is located in Wilmington along Rivals Road in Wesley Township. And as you can see in our staff report, the property is basically cut in half by Rivals Road. So those special use permit and where the solar panels are proposed to be installed are on the western portion of property, measuring about 47.8 acres. The site plan also shows that there's 2 equipment pads that will be installed. Both equipment pads with contained inverters will be located roughly 750 feet away from any closest residence. The entrance as proposed for this project is located on the northern end of the property that will give access to this project from Rivals Road, which is under Wesley Township Road District. The project also proposing to use existing natural landscape as screening along the northern, western, and southern portions of the property, while also the developer also proposing to install further native screening along the northern and southern portions of the property to kind of reinforce the existing vegetation that exists on site. So during the PZC meeting, there were 7 objectors who were speaking against this property. They also presented a petition with about 153 signatures, basically kind of objecting to the proposed solar farm. The concerns from the neighbors included concerns with the number of solar facilities in the area, the need for more screening, contaminants of their wells, and the impact of wildlife and the possible increase of potential traffic. The developer also presented a petition of support with 48 signatures. So finally, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 3-4, thereby denying this request. And staff did recommend approval of the special use permit with 4 conditions. And I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant here? You guys can head on over to the microphone. Any questions for staff from the committee?
No, I just want to make a comment.
Comment, go ahead. For them or first?
No, just in general.
Yeah.
So I actually went to a meeting in Wilmington that the mayor had about solar facilities, and the community came out overwhelmingly with questions and concerns about it, but they do not want it. So I am a no vote.
Thank you. You can step up to the microphone. You want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Stryker on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for hearing us this afternoon now.
I think what you'll see when you look over the application materials, one, we have a very strong staff report recommending the project. As you can imagine, we're an experienced developer, renewable properties. We take a very close look at both the state siting law and specifically the county ordinance when we're preparing these applications. This application not only conforms with all requirements, which I think is reflected by the staff recommendation, but when it comes down to it, it's a good site for solar development. It's in a area of the county that's not particularly heavily populated, Wesley Township. It's a site that has ample natural screening. We do take the questions seriously that we got from all the residents in the area, and we had a chance to fully explore that before the PCC, and I think adequately answered all those. What you also saw is a memo prepared by staff, which summarized a number of the questions that did come up, and whether it was traffic, too many solar farms in the area. You know, I was struck by the fact, I think after this, you're hearing a township by township presentation on solar development. There's only one other solar project that's applied in this township. So it's not one that you're seeing over and over again, solar projects applying. But again, what we do have is a county that is a good spot for solar, and we have an ordinance that we can comply with. Questions with regard to screening, again, I think were answered. Panels leaking, traffic, this is not an activity that's going to have a particularly large, if any, impact on traffic. You know, you had comments, taking up space produces no power. You know, again, if we're not producing power, we're going to have a lot bigger problems than just with the neighbors. This is a project that is, of course, designed to do that. We also, and I note some of the comments that were made earlier today, but this is a project that will have construction loan on it. It will be fully insured and bonded. So again, just like a tornado hitting any of the other large assets in Will County, whether it's the rail to truck intermodals, the heavy industrial facilities, certainly tornadoes are a problem and you have to carry insurance for them. I don't think it's something that Exxon could defend against, that Exelon could defend against, or that we could, but we will have adequate insurance to make sure that if one of our, you know, assets hits a neighbor or damages their property, that they'll be compensated. And we would take care of that just like any of the other large residents of Will County would. Here with me is the project developer, Jeremy Price. Also have Mike Butler, a civil engineer, and our landowner, Mike Hansen. I think what you'll see in the PZB minutes is that our landowner put on some very strong testimony with regard to this land. It is underperforming agricultural land, and solar is the highest and best use for this property, in his opinion. Also noteworthy, you know, I don't know why the 4 members that voted no on the project did. We did have some comments from the 3 yes members that one of the things they took very seriously was, one, that we do have a situation where the applicant clearly complied with ordinance requirements. And 2, also it's very consistent with Will County's long-term land use management plan that contemplates that agricultural is a use. This is an agricultural county. It's not necessarily a permanent use. It's a temporary one. This is a county that's growing. It's growing commercially. It's growing industrially. It's growing residentially. And there will have to be some agricultural land conversions to accommodate that. So again, we did have a 3-4 vote. Do not know what specifically the 4 members that voted no had an issue with. I'm assuming it was related to just general resistance from the landowners, like we heard from one of our members this morning. But I do want to stress, as Mr. Chairman, I think you noted, and I think the board chair noted, the state siting law exists to see this activity promulgated, and we have complied with that. We've also complied with the county ordinance, and that has to stand for something, that we can come into a county, take a look at the ordinance, know we can comply with the ordinance, and hopefully get an approval. But again, we don't want to stand on that. What we want to do is earn your approval. And I think when you look at the specifics of this site, you'll see that it's a very good site for solar. And happy to answer any questions, unless, Jeremy, there's something you wanted to say now, but, and maybe update them on the memo that you submitted.
Mr. Chair, committee members, good afternoon. Jeremy Price, project developer. I'd just like to say I did submit a memo. I recognize that there was one small typo in there. Apologies. It will not impact property values. And I think we'd just like to represent that we've taken a lot of time to reach out to the neighborhood, understand their concerns, and we haven't had a whole lot of response from them, and we continue to remain open and willing to discuss. So we appreciate your time and certainly are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Member Berkowitz. Okay.
I guess I can ask two questions. How much energy does your plant produce?
It's a good question. I can tell you, it depends on the, the consumption of a household, but roughly 1,000 houses.
Sorry, will you repeat that?
1,000 houses, more or less, for
1,000
5 megawatt project, yes.
Okay. And does the energy go directly to ComEd for the local area, or does it just go into the system?
Stays in the local ComEd distribution grid, so anybody theoretically could get that energy.
And do you have a recycling plan? You addressed that. What about currently, like, where would your materials go?
We don't have a recycling plan, but we have written white papers that identify secondary streams. At this point, we would be installing equipment that wouldn't be recycled for 30 years. There's a growing market for this technology, and we expect it would continue in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? Go ahead.
I apologize. I missed the first part of when you guys were speaking, so you may have already addressed this.
Sure.
But it sounds like there's significant community opposition to this. Have you guys worked with the residents or tried to mitigate their concerns?
We have. So were you able to read the memo? But the memo would detail the amount of conversation and outreach that's taken place and to date, and maybe members can correct me if I misremembered the situation, but we have not had anyone interested in reviewing accommodations that could be made. Thank you.
And I don't know who to ask this, but can you tell me approximately how close you are to the nearest homes?
To which type of component? I think the closest we would be from a fence line. Let me just grab the plans. Get you.
Thanks. I see it looks like to the south is where the nearest lots are. And how many homes are around that range?
5.
That's these lots on the
Yeah,
south
let me
here.
double check here.
And that's to their lot line or to their home?
That would be to the lot line, Mike? To the home. Yeah, but it would be, bisected by the vegetative screening. Unlike other developers, I think we put forward a very robust plan that includes deciduous and evergreen. We're not staggering. There's a complete blanket, all native vegetation that's been vetted by Will County Forest Preserve.
And what kind of fencing is planned?
Agricultural style, just for consistency.
That's nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we're ready to vote on this unless there's anyone here from the public that wanted, sorry, didn't mean to forget you. Thank you, guys. I invite you up to the microphone.
I got last night. Do you
Yep.
want that now or?
You can hand it out and then make sure you introduce yourself before you speak.
My name is Royanne Moore. I live in the subdivision on Pine Grove. I spoke with Jim Carter just last night.
Hold your comments until you're back to the microphone, please. Yeah, I'll take the rest. Oh, you do? Okay, okay. Thank you.
This was a little further in. I just wanted to say, nobody's ever reached out to us. I didn't know about this until roughly 2.5 weeks ago that this was even happening. I seen their sign just the other day. It's all deteriorated now, but it was covered by weeds. So you couldn't even see anything about the zoning meeting or anything or what it was on the sign. I did see their one on the opposite side of the street. That it wants residential. I've never seen the one on the other side for this. I don't think we have enough information on solar panels and the effect on people, animals, the environment, disposal of them. Solar panels are made of hazardous waste. They are made of toxic materials that can leach into the environment and possibly cause a public health hazard if they get in the groundwater. All of us are on wells out there. Some of them are only 25 feet. The first neighbor is 150 feet from their property. If those panels leak, get destroyed by hailstorm, tornado, whatever, you can't tell me that's not going to leak into our groundwater and our wells. And then when that happens, we basically have lost our houses because you're not going to be able to drill another well, right? The groundwater is contaminated. That's my probably biggest fear because of the unknown with that. If that happens, I've been out there 32 years. That was our first home. We bought new out there. So my house is 32 years old in August. The Kankakee River borders our subdivision. From the site, the Kankakee River is 1.3 miles in the one direction if you take Rivals Road all the way down. You can also turn on Elmwood to go to the river, which is about 1/3 of a mile from the site, and go down not even a mile, and you hit the Kankakee River. Actually, I think page 459 in your packets shows a pretty good picture of it where the Forked Creek is also. Forked Creek is across the way. It's 0.38 miles, not even a half a mile from this site. This site is on top of a hill. The portion of cornfield right now below it is downhill. We talked about the hailstorms and all that going with, so I will not repeat it from the last one. The thing I did find out also is these panels are mostly made in China. They are getting larger and their glass is getting thinner to reduce costs of making the panels, and they make them more fragile then. We have had a tornado out in our subdivision, June 7th of '08. It took out a couple of houses, did some major damage. I remember it. It was my son's wedding day. We've also had a couple microbursts out there, which have done severe damage. I don't think we should set precedent within the county for solar projects to be put in existing residential property areas. We're talking 150 feet to the first house, and there is another house directly across from that one. And it continues for not quite a mile on Rivals Road until you hit the river. There are other places to build these. Put them on former industrial sites, warehouse sites, landfills, not forests and farming. It can also create a negative effect on the adjacent residential values. The letter I gave you is from Jim Carges of Carges Realty here in Joliet. He's a couple buildings in front of where I work. I just know him from being in the area. I don't know him personally. I went over there yesterday morning when I got to work and I asked him what he thinks. What is the negative impact? Is there a negative impact on the value of our houses? And I said, and he said, well, where is it? And I said, well, the first house is going to be 150 feet away. I said, that is the entrance to our subdivision. So as you can see in his letter, he did state there would be an impact. And he owns Carges Realty. He's owned it for well over 30 years. He does tons of work, I know, in the Will County area. So he is informed. I mean, on the other, we all know there'll be wildlife disturbances. We've got tons of deer, cardinals, birds, bluebirds, foxes in our area. Homeowners have horses, cows, chickens. Birds I've read on, they mistake the glare of these solar panels for water. So I read it kills solar across the country now, kills tens of thousands of birds every year because of this. Argonne was given a $1.3 million to develop and study avian behavior at solar facilities given by the Department of Energy. They've got them looking into this. Rivals Road is a narrow road. It's basically not much more than a two-way road. And when you turn in, you turn real quick, you go up and you go up that hill. I don't know what the weight limit is, but I know semis are not allowed on it. Because they have been pulled over for trying to go in there. The only other road that comes into our subdivision is back towards the end of Rivals Road on Angle Road. That is less than a 2-lane road also, and it's a very narrow gravel road. Those are the only two ways in and out of our subdivision, are those two roads. I should also mention Forked Creek. It's not a little creek, it's a big creek. And it does overflow and it causes flooding, which floods the little town of Ritchie next to us, which would be our other only exit out. So we wouldn't be able to get into town if something happened. And my other thing was the screening. Trees, you're not going to have, if they're going to be trees, they're not going to have leaves on them from October to March. So that's all going to be viewable. How long is it going to take for the trees to mature even? And I guess that's all I got.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Mark Yule. I live on 34107 South Rivals Road, basically across the street from this proposed facility. Everyone is probably aware of the convergence of solar companies on Wilmington. There are already 2 approved, with this being number 3. These companies find Wilmington attractive because they can hook up their transmission lines directly to an existing 3-phase cable running on the power lines throughout our community, which were designed for future homes and businesses. This saves them a lot of money, profits, but it also puts them right next to homes and residential areas. That's their business model. The term solar farm sounds nice, but in reality, they are actually industrial electrical facilities and resemble the same. I went to the meeting for the one that's been approved, the 102 site, only 8 people there. They're using 10 by 18-foot solar panels and admitted the facility can raise the surrounding air temperature 5 degrees. Not considering the glare of these panels in my front windows and my neighbors. Any screening will not mature fast enough to hide anything and ultimately will not be maintained, as evidenced by other existing facilities. This company already tried to minimize the screening for my neighbor across the street by requesting him to sign a pre-dictated statement rejecting the need for screening. I have a copy of the addition to the pictures.
We'll share this one.
I have one.
Okay.
Yes. So that first copy is a copy of the letter that they sent my neighbor across the street. Of course, he didn't return it because he signed my petition against this solar. And he's going to be the most effective. He's not here today because he's got doctor's appointments for physical conditions. There are many reports of solar panels leaking. Also, the equipment used on these facilities use antifreeze that, if leaked, would have to be dug up, contained, and removed from the site. This information came from the Will County Planning and Zoning Commission staff report case ZC-23-1255-23072, MSDS sheet, page 204. And I've included that page into your packet as well. This page also includes firefighting measures in case of possible self-ignition of this product. We do not have fire hydrants in this unincorporated area. If any fire were to occur for any reason, such as their equipment or simply unmaintained brush, the results would be catastrophic. That 40-acre industrial fire would not occur if it were a bean or a cornfield, and it certainly shouldn't be a threat for myself or my family or neighbors. Just the fire issue is important. We had a garage fire that started small on the side of the garage. By the time the fire departments came from all over, my house was almost taken. So the firefighting is a big concern in this area for anything that could start the fire. Like I said, unmaintained brush. So these potential contaminants pose a real threat to properties with wells, and most wells, as Roy stated, surrounding this proposed facility are only 40 feet deep or less. Mine's 25. I am worried that this industrial facility if it's built, my property value will certainly go down, as evidenced by the letter you've just received. I don't know anyone who would buy a home with 40 acres of glass panels in their face, glaring in their face, not to mention the increased temperature that I stated previously. We keep bees, and we are concerned about this affecting them. I'm also concerned about the traffic disruption during construction and damage to Rivals Road. There are 1,700 cars that go up and down this road every day. There are a few discrepancies in this packet. On packet page 180, the South Rival Solar Project is said to be located in Lakewood Shores, Illinois, not Rest Haven, as is where the project is proposed. Also, on page 1 of Barrett's Energy Group in this packet on study, the same mistake was made, noting Lakewood Shores instead of Rest Haven, which Lakewood Shores is further down the street and nowhere near the area. Also, on packet page 217, it references Valerian Solar LLC on the soil study, not community solar or even renewable energy. Also on packet page 228, it references the corrosion of steel that might need a special site examination. These solar panels will be supported by large steel I-beam structures, which Jeremy Price told me himself, that will corrode over time and leaving more contaminants in the soil. On page 6 of the Barrett study, it states that any glare would be mitigated by existing neighbors' trees, not their own. But page 7, but page 5 said there would be no glare. And if you look on your pictures, page 1, picture number 1, is a view from me standing at my mailbox. That represents the south and the east view. Actually, it shows the whole field with the tree line in the back. Picture number 2 is actually the picture right off the front porch of my next door neighbor. And as you can plainly see, the screening is not there to cover any kind of panels, even if they were 18 foot. And we sit up on a hill, so that really there's no amount of screening that could eliminate the complete view of that whole solar facility. Also on page 4 is the man that couldn't make it here. They're building that right up to his property line, and that's the view of his house. And but obviously, there are no screening trees other than you can see there his house is plain view.
his view of that solar farm will be right in his face. So, get back to what I was saying. Okay, firefighting. Sorry. All right, also on packet, page 228, I thought it said the corrosion. And on page 6 of the Barrick study, it states that the residents on the south and the east would experience glare, but surmise the existing trees on their own property would suffice. That's the picture you just saw of the to the south. Again, trying to get out of the proper screening before the project even starts, exhibiting what a community neighbor they will be. Also, what about when the winter comes and when you can see past the leafless trees on your property that's supposedly going to mask this from us? The last meeting, Jeremy Price, the project manager, stated that there would be no glare. Also noted on the executive summary under surrounding land use, it states that it is agricultural, but it is bordered by 2 homes on the south and 3 homes on the east of the property. That's in the packet. It says agricultural. It's residential as well as agricultural, and not stated on that report. And on that same page, it notes Valerian Solar LLC as a recipient of the executive summary. Are these typos, or are there more companies involved in this land use request? I think all these discrepancies should be addressed before going further. This property drains into the neighbor's property, who's here today, which drains into a creek to the Kankakee River 1/4 mile away. Any contaminants from a potential fire or equipment leakage would end up in the Kankakee River. Perfect spot for a solar farm. I laugh at that. In the June 26, 2024 edition of the Free Press Advocate, on page 8, there was an article stating that as of Monday, June 24th, no evidence of a legal notice pertaining to the hearing had been published. I quote, entering the case number 2C-24-041 on the Will County website came up with no results. Also, the posted sign was only in one location and crumpled in the weeds since the day it was put in. I just noticed it was uprighted today. On page 3 of this staff report, it references where the inverters will be located. The location they will place it will be to reduce the amount of electromagnetic field to nearby residents, not eliminate it. How generous. This electromagnetic threat is a factor I had not even dreamed my family would have to endure because of this proposed project and for the next 36 years. I didn't even, until I looked in the package, I just thinking I just don't like it. It's too close to residential. And then we come upon this electromagnetic stuff. The health risks of the electromagnetic energy is real. According to the World Health Association, there is electromagnetic sensitivity, hypersensitivity, with symptoms triggered by exposure to electromagnetic radiation fields. These symptoms include headaches, fatigue, skin rashes, and sleep disturbance. We are fearful this will affect not only our family, but also our pets and the bees we keep. I've included this copyrighted article in your package as well. Please refer to page 5 of this article. Cons of living near a solar farm. Other than the health risks associated with living near a solar farm, there are other negative effects which include noise and light pollution. The solar panels can be disruptive, particularly at night. The panels emit a humming noise, which some people find annoying. And it was noted in the land use that it would be 45 decibels all the time. which some people find annoying, with the bright lights, and the bright lights can keep people up at night. It's dark by my house. That's because we live in the country. Negative impacts on local wildlife and ecosystems. Well, Roy Ann already referenced the birds and the danger to them. We have deer walking through that area all the time past my house, and that's the way they get to the river. That'll be eliminated when they build this thing. And that they can disrupt the natural habitat, and the panels can kill insects and other small creatures as a result of the solar radiation. Solar farms may not be aesthetically pleasing. They can cause quite large and unsightly acres of land. If you have an aesthetic concern about the visual impact, it may not be ideal for you. Property value, since some people believe the solar farms are not aesthetically pleasing, they can decrease the property prices around it, as evidenced by the letter you got from Roy Ann. I also say in this article, what you can do, they suggest you move. I can't move. I've just recently retired. I plan on living there the rest of my life. And now this comes up. So these companies are required by law to contribute a reclamation fund. It takes 15 years to be fully funded. If the company leaves before that, taxpayers will foot the bill, or not, it'll be a brownfield that will have to sue them to get them to leave. Well, taking the petition around Rest Haven, one question kept coming up. This solar company is calling the facility community solar. That's nice. The question is, what is the benefit to the community? I asked the project manager, Jeremy Price, about it, of Renewable Energy, and he said that after designating your solar panels and working with 2 electric bills, ComEd and them, the most cost savings possible is $10 on a $100 monthly bill. That is, if there's even enough sun to achieve this outcome. Most of the power will be sold to the grid. Matt Kopinski, project manager of the 102 site, verified this information at that public meeting. So, besides money, besides the potential tax money, this proposed electrical industrial site is only going to benefit land speculator Mark and Kimberly Hansen from Grundy County and Renewable Energy from California. There is no real benefit to the tax-paying citizens in the community. Rivals Road is a 2-lane, 1-mile stretch of road leading into the community of Rest Haven. It's essentially the driveway into Rest Haven. When they said it was agriculture, there's 200 homes just bordering from my house all the way back into the woods and down Rivals Road. It's not agricultural. This is a residential community. According to the information from a planning and zoning staff report, there are over 1,700 cars that use this road every day. This industrial facility would be the first thing we would see coming to and from our homes. There's not a single landowner adjacent to this property that agrees with this proposal. This is evidenced by their signatures on this petition. Nobody wants to see it there. This is evidenced by their signatures on this petition, along with many others in the community. Not one person, when I went to their house with the petition, refused. Everybody was against it. Walked all through Rest Haven.
Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay, I can. All right. I find it interesting that a real estate speculator from Grundy County and an energy company from California are here asking you, our Will County board members, for a land use change from an old growth, oak tree lined cornfield to a potentially polluting industrial complex. This is against the wishes of longtime tax-paying residents of Will County and Rest Haven. I have talked to many people while signing the petition, and there's a lot of anger and outrage over this matter, and they hope it goes away. To be sure, that I am not against solar power. I know it's a future reality, but I don't think putting these industrial facilities amongst residential homes is the proper application. Furthermore, I don't think this was the intent when Governor Pritzker signed solar plant protections into law. I think they're taking advantage of it. These plants are far more suitable in the country. For all the reasons I stated previously, I respectfully ask the board members to vote against this land use change, or at the very least, table this measure for further consideration. I thank you for your time. Please help us. It is in your hands. Mark Yule. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yule.
And that's all yours to keep, the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Edward Dunn, 21302 West Angle Road. And my wife and I own 40 acres of farmland adjoining the west border of this property. And we receive a lot of runoff from the farmland into our property. And one of my concerns is with these solar panels, it's going to increase the runoff we receive. And if there's any leaking or damaged equipment, we're going to get pollution from that. So, in this area, as Mark brought up almost all my points already, because we're worried about diminished property values and the location of this thing that's in a residential, basically, area. It's either small home sites or small acreage home sites. So it's really not in keeping with this area to put an industrial operation in it. And it's like other people have mentioned, this is the driveway in and out of the Rest Haven area. That's the first thing you're going to see. So since Mark covered almost everything I could say, I'm going to let it go at that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Hello.
Good afternoon. Leonard McCubbin, 34723 South Danielson Road, Wilmington, Wesley Township, also Wesley Township Road Commissioner. I have several points to bring up here. Wilmington itself is a tight-knit, proud community, okay? I was raised in the Joliet area, and I've never experienced what I experienced in the town of Wilmington. Everybody is close. They like the small community atmosphere, so on and so forth, and we want to keep it a small town. If not, we wouldn't be there. I've been there 37 years in one spot, so let me just say I love it. Like they all mentioned before, this planned solar farm is on the main entrance into Rest Haven. Rest Haven is an established community probably back in the era of the Depression. The Bohemians out of Chicago, not to be racist or anything, that's where their recreation area was at, okay? And that's how this area was founded, as a recreational area back during the Depression era. And even before that, down along Custer Park. People live out there now, they're out there for that reason. They enjoy the wildlife, they enjoy the recreation. I also feel that Mark Hansen here, the developer / broker, he bought 2 parcels of land out there. He bought this farm in question. Directly across the road, he bought another farm, quote unquote, approximately 2 years ago. When he purchased his farm, he had the opportunity to go through farm records to see what that land produced as far as crops. Apparently he was satisfied with it or didn't do his homework. Now he's got the land across the street to the east of this property in question up for sale for estate lots. This land here, he's got under consideration for rezoning for a solar farm. Just because the broker, Mark Hansen, made a bad investment, should the residents of Wesley Township, Rest Haven in particular, pay for that bad investment? I don't think so. I think he made a mistake and he's looking for any way out of it to make a buck. And that should not fall on our backs whatsoever. We've also got a situation of land values has been mentioned before. I've heard reports as much as 20% devaluation. We've got new homes going in the areas. These people, it's not fair to these people. They didn't buy these lots. They didn't buy these homes with the anticipation, I'm going to lose possibly 20%. You think they would be there? I don't think there's anybody in this room that would make an investment like that. We're in a wildlife area. We got a lot of wildlife. Everybody enjoys it. In the last few years, we've had a natural rehabilitation of the turkey, the wild turkey. Wild turkeys are very secluded animals. They frequent both these areas that Mark has. We put a solar farm in there. We've lost that reestablishment of wild turkeys into that area. They'll be gone. Not to mention the rest of the quail population. Deer are plentiful. They've got to have some place to feed and water. Has anyone come across with an environmental impact study of what it's going to do to our wildlife? I don't think so. If so, I've not heard any of it. We keep hearing about the benefits to the local government, the tax benefits. I have not heard any substantial dollar amount figures or percentages that's going to go towards local government for improved infrastructure and or maintenance of the infrastructure after they leave, and particularly after they decommission it. That's going to be left up to the local government, the way I see it. Also, the property itself in question, there's a pipeline crossing right in the middle of this property. And I don't know how much they've done work they've done with the pipeline company to see if they've got an easement they have to protect, but there's another one that can be concerned with. Rivals Road, the main entrance into this project, and the main entrance into Rest Haven has an 8-ton load limit. There's no way, and I've addressed this with Mark, and he kind of brushed it off, or not Mark, rather, I'm sorry, Mr. Price, and he kind of brushed it off, that every load in and out there would have to be permitted. His response was, well, we're not going to bring any more than a pickup in there. I'm not an idiot, so don't act like I am with the comments like that. We know they're not going to bring these material in there on a pickup. The state legislation may give the green light for your solar projects. However, I don't think that they intended to be in a residential area. And there's a reason that we're going through this process, because I believe Will County has the final say-so as to where these can be placed. We've got a lot of industrial areas around here that can go on these. You can go on. We got a lot of industrial parks going around here. Utilize those. Solar, yeah, it's probably the way of the future. I've got no problem with that. I've got a problem with it being in residential areas. If this plan goes through, I'd like to see some stipulations applied upon it. The requirements being that Rivals Road be improved at their expense to bring it up to standards, to a standard 80,000 pound road. Also, I'd like to have see a stipulation saying that the minimum vegetation they use for screening would be of a 12-foot existing height when it's planted. In other words, I don't want to see any seedlings go in there, I prefer. I'd like to see full plants go in there. You can buy full-size mature plants and have them installed. That would be more adequate to the area, more appealing, I should say. As far as retention ponds, I have not seen anything as far as retention ponds for runoff or retainment of water. We heard an earlier testimony, I should have bad word, any more than 25,000 square foot requires retention pond. I would be safe in saying that the surface of these solar panels is going to be well in excess of 25,000 square feet. And I don't feel that's been addressed whatsoever. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. I'm gonna give you an opportunity. Did you already speak? I can't. Yeah, you did. Is there anybody else here? Well, you actually do, but you can actually just press that microphone right there if you'd like. If you just have a quick comment. State your name first.
My name is Grace Yule. My husband spoke. Mr. Price has repeatedly said that he reached out to people in the vicinity. No one has said that they ever spoke to him. As a matter of fact, last Wednesday, when we were at the meeting on Tuesday, I was in the middle of food prep in my kitchen and noticed the caller ID pop up when the phone rang, and it was his name, and he didn't even bother to leave a message. So if that's considered an effort to talk to the community, it's not really an effort to talk to the community. So
Thank you for your comment. You guys can come back up if you want to address some of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, David Stryker for the applicant. We did have the chance during the PZC meeting to address a lot of these concerns. Several new ones were addressed today, one of which I wanted to touch on was the property valuation topic and the email that was submitted to you. With our report was a very detailed property evaluation study that was done by a licensed appraiser in Illinois. I'm very familiar with that report. They take a very scientific approach to whether or not solar has a negative impact on neighboring property values and come to the conclusion that they do not. That report was done by very specific standards using a matched pair analysis. And while perhaps it's someone's common sense or they think this is the way, but that is not what the science shows. And that report was submitted timely with our application and had a chance to be vetted before the PZC, which is the fact-finding committee here. I'm not familiar with Mr. Karjas, but I would note that what he's stating here is hearsay, and it's just his opinion. We have a very detailed report, and I would note for the board too, that report is specific to Illinois, taking into account comparables in LaSalle, Winnebago, Stevenson, and Fayette County. So it is a good report, and that is the scientific analysis, not the knee-jerk emotional analysis. One of the PZC members warned us that the vote we were going to have was going to be an emotional vote. We're trying to take that out of the situation here and present you with hard facts on what's going on here. Another one that came up was runoff. What we're going to do is plant this area with native grass, deep-rooted native grasses. One, in Illinois, you can't increase runoff to your neighbors by law. What we are going to do is plant these native grasses. It should make the field more permeable. It will not be fertilized. So any water that is already running off the fields would be cleaner. And we do think it would have a positive benefit on not having runoff going to the neighboring properties. But again, we can't make it worse. The solar farm is not going to make that worse. And I would like to note, we've heard a lot of talk from the neighbors and other members of the community. What we haven't heard is anybody stating that our application does not meet the ordinance requirements. Similar to staff, this application does meet state and local requirements. We do believe we have a good project that should protect everybody and be a betterment to the community. Jeremy, any specific topics?
You might ask now or just let them finish.
I'll make it quick, but feel free.
Okay, I'll let him finish and then I'll ask
I think
if that's fine.
they're wrapping up now.
Okay, just to dive into the stormwater reduction, we don't have any retention because this will actually improve the runoff. And it's fairly substantial on a 2-year storm. It's a 47.5 reduction. And on a 100-year storm, it's a 33% reduction. Per each storm event, that's essentially 1 Olympic pool and almost 2.5 Olympic pools. We have a slide, I might have misstated the number, but it's substantial in terms of reduction. From a pipeline perspective, we have been in touch with both of those entities and we have designed around those pipelines. So we're in active communication with them. Pipeline crossings with access roads are very standard and they happen every day. I did it professionally for 4 years on the wind side prior to this role. I think we've addressed the environmental considerations. We're improving, we're providing habitat for pollinators. We would be using a pollinator-friendly seating plan. With respect to access, there will be semi-trucks. So we certainly agree. I think my comment was taken at a turn that after it's constructed, it would only be limited to pickup trucks. And Mr. McCubbin's testimony at the P&Z, he did indicate that he had not heard from me since providing communications. I would, for the record, like to state that I reached out in March and I have an email to back that up. And there was discussion of a road maintenance agreement, which, for a 1,000-foot strip of road, we're willing to further discuss. Are there any specific responses to raise questions? Otherwise, there's a lot of comments that I could make.
Thank you. Sherry, let me go to Julie first, just because her light was.
Sure. Thank you. What are do the panels rotate?
They are on an axis, so they will track with the sun.
So what is the highest height?
So by state statute, it would be limited to 20 feet.
20 feet.
Correct. We're nowhere close. I think we're more around the 10-foot limit. And to that point, I did have some comments on the glare report, which is probably part of your question.
Okay. So you're, right now it's 10 foot.
Approximately.
Which will be higher than any type of a border that you put around the property, quite a bit higher. Is there any point in time where you perhaps might put in 12-foot panels or taller panels?
It's unlikely those panels should live for the duration of the project. We do have a picture showing what the vegetative screening looked like, modeled after 2 years, if you're interested to see that.
Is that in the?
It is in the slide deck, yeah, if staff's able to support. So this is a graphic rendering, and this is only 2 years after planting, and you can see some of the vegetation is already eclipsing the top of the panels there. You know, the mature growth of these trees could be anywhere up to 20 feet, and that's included in the landscaping plan. I could, give you a breakdown, and that's comprised of both deciduous and evergreen, providing that full coverage across the year.
Okay, and so do you, there were 2 comments from the Soil and Water Conservation District. And they would like a field tile study, maintenance, replacement when needed. They'd like that addressed. That is not included in staff conditions.
That will be required as part of the permitting process, a drain tile study
So
for when they come forward for permitting.
we actually have conducted a drain tile survey, and that's in the plans. We'd be happy to show. And we are bound by the Agricultural Impact Mitigation Agreement, which dictates what happens if we run into a tile and how we replace it. So we would follow that to a T.
And who monitors that? Does anyone at the county or the Soil and Water Conservation
I think
District?
various parties have the right to bring it to the Department of Agriculture's attention, including Will County. We certainly hold ourselves responsible.
Okay, and then they also required a SC soil erosion and sediment control plan. Is that part of that? They're not in the conditions, but is that something else you're doing?
Absolutely. So the SWIP is Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Plan is part of the SWIP, and that's actually issued at time of building permit by the state. It's a NOI, notice of intent. We can't get a building permit or a site development permit without that, I presume.
That is correct.
Go ahead, Member Newquist.
Thank you. So I know that our ordinance, we're not a home rule county, as you know. So our ordinance was required to mirror the state statute, hence the 150 feet, which you guys are obviously, clearly complying with. But it seems that we've had the more successful projects have moved the boundaries further away from houses. And I'm not trying to speak for the community. I have no idea what would be acceptable to them. But it just seems to me that 150 feet is awfully close. And it seems like some of our more successful projects have been 600 or even 1,000 feet away from the nearest neighbors. Is this something that you would consider doing, moving the project away from, such close proximity to the houses?
Sure. So number one, I appreciate the comment. Number two, we'd like to fully vet the 150-foot distance. I don't know that that's necessarily true. As to the way the site was designed, we are working around some constraints. There is a floodplain, a self-contained floodplain, which we had to avoid. So that explains us pushing the panels a little bit closer to the south. Otherwise, we would have nestled the panels together. We're not allowed to build in that floodplain, and it poses no risk to the abutters or the environment. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So Frankie, I do.
Go ahead, Chair Ogalla.
I'm sorry, and I forgot to ask on the last solar, what type of fencing will be used for the site?
We're proposing a woven wire agricultural fence on this project.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments from the public? Oh, we do have one.
I do have one comment. It seems like, and I understand you've done everything, that is required of you by law. It seems that where you fail is in your communication with the community. I think that's really at the heart of the problem. And I just think that at some point, you may want to reconsider that, because that's really going to be, what makes or breaks your project is getting the support from the community that really helps. It helps a lot of things. Otherwise, they're going to be complaining the whole time, no matter what happens here on the board. So if I were you, I'd maybe reapproach the community. I think that's where the issues are. Yes, you've done everything that's required of you. I see that, but that's seems like you haven't gotten buy-in yet.
Thank you for your comment. I would open it up to the abutters here. Are you interested in further discussing the project and potential accommodations that could be made? Mr. Yule, I've reached out a number of times. The reason I didn't leave a voicemail is because my calls have gone unanswered for months. So, I'm not going to continue to put myself out without a response. We've made every effort to talk
Well-
to you, and we continue to do so.
Okay, but the thing is that no matter how many times you tell us how good it is, we don't want it in our front yard. So we're wasting our time, you're wasting your time.
Right. I don't want to get into a back and forth here. I appreciate, here's the thing. I mean, could they have done better? Sure. But the process worked. There's dozens of names on here. There's people here. Obviously, the community is aware of the project, right? Could it have been? Right. But we haven't made up our mind on it yet. So you're here. Listen, I'm not saying I appreciate your passion for this. This is your home. It's going to be right up against it. I totally understand, but the process did work, right? You're here. Your neighbors have signed. So whether it was you guys or the county or however it came about, people are aware of the project going. So it does work. Go ahead.
So I'd just like to make a comment to the residents that are here, that as a county board, we hear what you're saying, and we really do agree with you. We do believe that the county should be allowed to say yes and no to where these solar facilities can be sited. Unfortunately, the way the legislation's written, that doesn't permit us to do a lot of that. And we have denied solar companies who have requested certain locations, and it has always been so far related to being close to residences. So what I would say is we are fighting this. We are looking to get some changes made into the legislation. It is a tough road to fight, but we are fighting. We're part of a group called ISACO, which is the Illinois State Association of County Organizations, and they have a wind solar task force that I'm part of. We are looking to get some changes made there, but what will help us is that all of you and everyone on any petition that has been signed ever, is that all of you contact your local state representative and senator and tell them your concerns. Because the only way we're going to get changes made into that legislation is by everybody speaking up, because there's a group of us, we do speak up. We go to Springfield and lobby. We have a lobbyist that we have hired that lobbies for us what we want, what changes we'd like to see, as well as the ISACO board, which encompasses many counties throughout Will County. But we do need the residents to get involved because of the fact that this legislation that allowed this to happen was passed during the lame duck session. Not a lot of input was be able to put into it, and it got passed. And it is very restrictive when it comes to the county. So my recommendation is to do that. Give us a hand, put it out there, tell your neighbors, tell your friends. We need to get a change made so that this board, the people sitting up here on this committee, truly feel for you and they truly hear your concerns. And I know that solar companies have looked at doing some of this, but they're in it to make a buck, because solar energy, green energy is the current path for what the future might bring. So they're doing what they are doing. That's their business. It's up to us to protect ourselves and to fight for what we want in our communities. So that's my recommendation to those of you here, anyone you have communications with, to fight this and give the control back to the county so we can say yes or no. The solar companies then will know, listen, they're not going to like this. They'll go somewhere else and find another landowner that is willing to lease their property to them, or in some cases, they'll buy another parcel that's in a location where you say, hey, make it more agricultural, put it in the industrial area, because it is not a solar farm, I agree. It is a solar energy plant. And unfortunately, the legislation gives them the ability to do much of what they're doing. So join the fight, get those letters, make those phone calls, and help us out.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. I mean, because I'm sitting here about to vote on this and I'm still torn. On one hand, we have state legislature telling us you pretty much have to approve these. As many as come to you, you have to approve them all. Our own state's attorney is telling us we're going to end up in legal battles if we don't. On the other hand, we have people from the community, the people that elected me, coming and saying, I don't want this. I'm afraid of this. I don't know what it does to my drinking water. I don't know what it does to my quality of life. And I think it's my job as an elected official to hear them and vote accordingly. So it really is tough. We have companies that don't live in these communities that are trying to change that community. And we have people coming from that community that are not planning on leaving, that are just worried about what this does to the value of their home. And the truth is, nobody knows. I hear both sides on this, but we don't know. You won't know until you put it there what it does to the value of those homes. It might increase it for all we know, but it very well may not. So it's tough, but I do want you guys to know we hear you. We're just put in a really tough spot where we're really told that it doesn't even matter whether we prove it or not, it's going to happen. So we just have to make a decision on how easy we make that for you.
I have a question for staff. So many of these projects that come before us, these solar facilities, they tell us that it generates tax dollars for the county. My question is, how many tax dollars? This project, this is on over 47 acres, but the permit is for slightly more
30.
than that.
Be 30 acres. And I can read you the breakdown of the
30
taxes
acres.
when you're done.
So specifically, how many tax dollars go to the county?
So the
To Will
staff, if I
County.
may. Yeah, I mean, as far as the total value of the project, it's roughly $800,000. And that's a conservative estimate based on the way that the Department of Revenue currently classifies it. As tax rates increase, we expect that to increase.
So
The
my
dollar of
question
Will
is-
County specifically is,
To the county, not to the township.
it's
To
$66,000,
the town-
$66,000.
Is the county levy 66?
Correct.
66.
School district, I'm just going to run down the list here. Forest Preserve is over 15,000 compared to, and I can give you both numbers, both what it would receive now. The difference between the project and the existing land is almost $25,000 in year one alone. So Forest Preserve is 15,000. Mr. McCubbin talked about infrastructure and the benefit it provides there. It is 16,000 to Wesley Township funds. It is 30,000 to the road funds. The Wilmington Fire Protection District would get roughly $126,000. The School District 209U would obtain roughly $480,000. That's almost 66%. That's a substantial benefit to residents. Community College District, $33,000. Wilmington Public Library, $33,000.
That's all in the first year.
That would be that is total. That is a total tax benefits to the project.
So,
Over what period of time?
35 years roughly.
okay, so so this $66,000 that would go to the county levy, that's each year.
That is the duration of the project.
Okay, so let me put it in perspective. I'm a homeowner, and I think our parcel is not maybe a quarter acre. And this year, my Will County taxes are about $1,100. So it seems to me like the residents are paying higher taxes than commercial, because this is, or an industrial use. So if you've got, 4 or 5 homes per acre, and I just, I know sometimes residential, when you look at the levies, they can sometimes pay more than commercial and industrial. So in this case, I'm, 66,000 over the lifetime of the project, 30 years. That's, I mean, that hurts the taxpayer.
There's no burden on this, on tax dollars like there are residences, no additional schools, pupils placed into the schools. Just for
Well,
comparison.
we have nothing to do with schools or tax levies. Nobody's happy with those. But when they call me, they look at our levy, our Will County levy, and now we have the 708 Mental Health Board between those two levies. I look at my taxes every year, which go up. County levies been going up every year. We fight against it, but it goes up. I have to pay that every year. If I could pay, $1,100 over 30 years, I'd be ecstatic. But, next year, maybe I'll be paying 12,000 or 13 or 1,200 or 1,300. But my point is that when you don't have business, commercial or industrial to pay those higher tax levies, then it does cost the residential homeowners, because we have to make up that difference, that tax difference. So I don't know who, it's probably state statute that has that tax formula, 66,000 over 30 years. But
I can answer that. It is a state
My-
statute that is a
My
formula for the assessed valuation. We do pay the local tax rate. So when the local levy rate goes up, the dollar amount of taxes paid would go up as well. What we were quoting was of course, significant tax benefits you would get between agriculture and how it's going to be assessed with the solar asset on there. So it is a large increase in the amount of taxes parcel will be paying.
And, yeah, I mean, I can read the Will County and the current status of the land as agricultural would receive $151 per year. So we're increasing that amount to 244,000. I recognize your residence receives a higher tax bill, but there is a structure on that lot. And so there would be nothing precluding, from this land being farmed indefinitely. And therefore I wouldn't say is a orange to orange comparison. But I recognize your point. And I
just to
appreciate it.
clarify, 85 acres, you said the bill is how much? 135?
It would be 29 acres. So a separate tax lot would be created and the remainder of the 45 acres would be assessed the same way as it has now.
You're only getting taxed. on
Okay,
135.
thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we're ready to vote on this. Make it quick, please.
I was just wondering, how many solar farms have come to you that have been this close to a residential neighborhood, 150 feet from the first house in a residential subdivision?
Yeah, more than you might think, but some of them have been denied for that reason. So,
Yeah, because I did a search on them. I couldn't find any.
yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole looking and I couldn't find any that had been placed in a subdivision.
I can pretty much assure you that if this committee were writing the rules, there would be a much bigger distance required.
And I guess the other thing would be on top of that, a subdivision that has wells and not city water and sewer.
I hear you.
That's my biggest issue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Dawn, you want to go ahead and, I think we have a motion and a second, although it seems like hours ago.
Special use permit for commercial solar energy facility with 4 conditions. Destiny Ortiz? Jerry Newquist? No. Al Mitchell? No. Berkowitz? No. Chairman Frankie Pretzel?
No. Motion fails. Okay, on to other business. So here's the thing. It's after 2:00. We've lost half of our committee. Unless I'm completely offending anybody on staff that has something prepared to present this afternoon, I'm going to request that we table the rest of this for next month. Some of it was going to be anyway, tabled till next month. Colin, did you have anything pressing that you wanted to? Okay, so if I can get one of you to make a motion to table the rest of the agenda, or do we have to go one by one?
I make a motion that we table the remaining item.
All right.
Oh,
Let's do this previous roll style real quick. So, under other business, solar status report, motion, I'm looking for a motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion second. We have to do a fresh, clean.
Destiny Ortiz,
Yes.
Jerry Newclass.
Yes.
Raquel Mitchell. Julie Berkowitz.
Yes.
And Frankie Kutza.
Yes. Motion carries. Number 2, solar guidelines for the county. Looking for a motion in a second.
Motion. Second, Jerry. Previous Ortiz.
second, Berkowitz.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 3, zoning notifications and procedures.
Second, Nicholas. Previous Ortiz.
Second, Berkowitz.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. 4, procedures of development of former agricultural properties and drainage issues. Motion to table.
Motion.
Second, Nicholas. Previous Ortiz.
Second, Mitchell.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Last update for land resource management plan. I don't think we need to vote on that. Colin, just be ready to talk about that next month. I don't have anything under reports. Do we have any committee members that wish to say anything today? Okay, do we have anybody from staff that'd like to comment?
I think we have public comment.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Introduce a new staff member.
Welcome.
Tina, and she'll be working.
Did you learn-
Welcome, Jen.
You learned to bring a snack and an extra bottle of. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, please, go ahead. Yeah, thank you for your patience. I know you've been waiting a long time. Oh, you have the handout? Yep. Go ahead. Thanks. Yeah, go ahead to the microphone.
To Dawn.
I think this is,
They have names on it.
Names on them.
Destiny. Joe is not here. Sherry.
Thank you.
Me.
thanks. That's for Joe.
We can give you Joe's if you want to hold it for him.
Right there. Yeah, you're good. Just start with who you are.
My name is Jim O'Connor. I'm the executive director of the Second Story Foundation. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit that works to help people in early recovery from substance use disorder. Just wanted to introduce ourselves. I met with the Will County Land Use on June 27th about a project we're working on, 2400 Bemis Road in Crete. It's a 68-acre horse farm. Right now, it's a harness racing training facility. It's been for sale for a long time, and we are looking to develop it into a long-term residential recovery home for men. It's not like anything that exists. We're working with Illinois Department of Human Services to be classified as a pilot project because in our model, the executive director and director of operations will have on site with the men. The men will have jobs on the farm for the first phase of the program. That phase is not time limited, so there'll be no time limits on how long the gentleman can stay there. The second phase of the program, he'll get a straight job in the community, continue to live with us, and we'll help him transition to independent living. It's unique in a number of ways. First and foremost, that everybody gets a job, landscaping, horse care, and maintenance. The second is going to be that there's no time limits. And the third is that we are not charging anybody anything. We're not billing Medicaid or insurance. The program will be free of charge for the people who join.
Sounds like great work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce ourselves. We're going to be looking for a special use ordinance and try to stay zoned agriculture. I've made contacts in the board and you'll just be hearing more from us.
All right.
Thanks so
for
much.
sticking around. Appreciate it. Any other public comment? Okay, any executive session today? I don't think so. All right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second Ortiz.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, everybody. Next meeting scheduled for August 13th, 2024, right here. Thanks. Have a great day.
Gillespie.